Our saga begins as a quintet of imposing figures marches down the street. Their faces a mask of pure, unadulterated rage, based on the intel. These are the same thugs who were hospitalized and subjected to questioning, humiliated by the inquiry of whether a mere mongrel had bested them. Meanwhile, a tempest of fury brewed within Jong-suk. He was utterly consumed by the sheer audacity of the one responsible. Without a moment's hesitation, fueled by his wrath, he marched directly into the heart of their treacherous den. The sentinels at the gate were bewildered by this sudden, unannounced arrival. They had received no prior warning of his impending storm. Jong-suk was in no mood for pleasantries or explanations. Instantly, a brutal fist connected, sending the guard reeling as he stormed inside. There, a man lounged on a couch, flanked by two women, casually playing. His leisurely demeanor shattered upon witnessing the protagonist's fearsome arrival. At long last, the man he had been anticipating was finally here. Jong-suk's voice dripped with venom, demanding why he dared to trifle with his crew, asking if he truly possessed a death wish in this tense standoff. The man, Dog Meat, remained completely unfazed by his ominous warning. He coolly stated that the individual Jong-suk was hunting for was not the same man he had encountered on a previous occasion. That warrior was diagnosed as something more than human. He was a veritable demon. Indeed, Ichinin's legendary Mad Dog was once prepared to sacrifice his all for a fight, but the cruel passage of time had changed everything. He had become old. The ferocious fire that once blazed in his eyes had vanished. This was the exact reason Dog Meat denied him the honor of serving. Jong-suk sensed the unmistakable ring of truth in his words, but his rage intensified, and he summoned his underling with a command to venture forth and bring back his head, showing absolutely no mercy. The orders were followed with immediate, lethal precision. But in a shocking twist, both of his loyal men turned their attack directly on him. A wicked laugh erupted from Dog Meat's lips. He sneered that Jong-suk should finally grasp the gravity of his position. The betrayal shattered Jong-suk's composure completely. He unleashed his fury upon his own men, felling them with a single, devastating blow each. A moment later, standing battered and bruised, Dog Meat's associate declared that this was merely the prelude to the real show, revealing he had orchestrated something far grander for him. With a theatrical snap of his fingers, he summoned dozens of warriors who swarmed and encircled our wounded hero. He clarified with a smirk that this entire confrontation was meticulously planned. The rival commanded his men to begin the onslaught, and as we see, a chaotic brawl ignited while Jong-suk's rage reached its boiling point. The brutal battle finally concluded after a long, grueling struggle. When the perspective shifts, Jong-suk is seen staggering down a desolate street. He clutched his chest, gasping desperately for each ragged breath. He fought with every fiber of his being just to remain conscious, while viciously cursing Dog Meat's mate for this treacherous act. Assessing his grave condition, and realizing with chilling certainty that his life was about to end, he finally collapsed, his body giving out on the cold ground. Ever the warrior, he smiled grimly and let his mind drift back, remembering the beginning. For him, life had been a worthless existence. He had abandoned his education at the tender age of 18, and ultimately fell into the embrace of the criminal organization, his one and only path to survival. This path required him to steep his hands in all manner of filthy deeds, all to ascend to the position of power he held until this moment. He crushed the weak beneath his heel and eliminated countless detectives, never once sparing a thought for the families they also possessed. Through these vile acts, finally, after 20 years of wrongdoing, he had successfully seized the throne as the syndicate's ringleader. And yet, in the very end, as he gazed back upon his past, the bitter realization dawned that all of it had been for absolutely nothing. Our protagonist was now adrift in a sea of his own memories, acknowledging the wicked path he had walked until this very moment. He was about to perish with bitter tears staining his eyes. With his last breath, he pleaded for just one more chance to live life anew. Just before his consciousness faded and he met the unforgiving ground, Jong-suk's eyes flew wide open. He found himself standing in a completely foreign, ethereal space. His mind reeled, wondering if this was the fabled afterlife or something else. From the void, a powerful voice boomed, asking if he truly held regret for his life. The question left Jong-suk completely and utterly stunned. Jong-suk was in no frame of mind to provide a simple answer. So out of pure defiance he roared, demanding that the disembodied speaker emerge and reveal its true form. His defiant wish was granted, and as he turned his head, he beheld a celestial angel, suspended in the vast expanse above him. The angel proclaimed that his very soul was already tainted and corrupted, as much as it possibly could be. That very thought once again forced Jong-suk to vividly relive the sins of his past existence, flashing right before his very eyes. The being declared his soul was destined to descend into the flames of hell for all of eternity. The 40-year-old man's face was etched with terror, and the angel perceived. The celestial being then noted that he was impressed that such a hardened man realized his mistakes. At last, Jong-suk's defiant spirit calmed. He vividly recalled the final, pathetic moments of his life back on Earth, and it was this memory that caused his eyes to well up with tears again. The shame of it was deeply embarrassing for the hardened man. He then attempted to justify his previous actions. However, after regaining a sliver of his former composure, but instead, the angel extended an offer of a second life to resolve his regrets. Jong-suk was left utterly speechless by this unbelievable declaration. He cautiously inquired about the offer, and upon receiving its confirmation, he lowered his gaze and began to speak to the divine being. He swore an oath that he would never again live the wretched life he had before, a life of killing and brutalizing the weak and innocent. The angel, possessing a kind heart but a profoundly curious mind, was also quite eager to test if the dark prophecies of Satan were indeed true. Before bestowing upon him this miraculous wish, the angel made it clear that under any circumstances, his past transgressions would never be fully forgiven. It wouldn't matter even if he performed good deeds in his second chance at life. In that instant, before he could fully process the entire situation, a blinding, brilliant light forced our protagonist to shut his eyes tight. The very next moment, as he slowly opened his eyes, he looked around, wondering where he was and how it all transpired. As he scanned his completely new surroundings, he was unaware that his physical body had already been transformed. The instant he caught his reflection in the nearby mirror, he saw the face of a strikingly young and handsome teenager staring back. He was desperately trying to recognize this new face when a phone's shrill ring echoed. A man's angry voice erupted from the other side of the call, berating him. He demanded to know why he had been skipping school for the last several days. Completely bewildered by this strange phone call, Jong-suk demanded to know the identity of the person on the line. It was then revealed that the caller was none other than the school dean himself, who once again barked at him to return to the school grounds immediately. Everything was unfolding with the dizzying speed of a lightning strike, and as he began to connect all the disparate threads of this puzzle, from receiving a call from the head of the school to his sudden appearance in this very home, his own memories and the current date on the calendar, all these clues pointed back to his encounter in that divine white space. To put it simply, he had regressed back to his 18-year-old self. This was the exact time just before he had dropped out of school, and that sudden, overwhelming realization caused Jong-suk to burst into tears. He collapsed to his knees, fervently thanking the angel for this miraculous gift, and he made a solemn vow to live a proper, decent human life. Jong-suk, now following the dean's strict instructions, began to pull on his old school garments. After a few moments, he was fully dressed in his high school uniform. Standing tall and resolute, he held his head high, firmly intending to atone for all the wickedness of his past deeds, and he resolved to live the life of a normal high school student, without ever again turning into a monstrous gangster. He then made his way down the familiar street. Suddenly, a thug with distinct yellow hair called out his name loudly. This man was instantly recognizable as a local town delinquent.
Hyun Yong-sik.
A flashback surged through him. He used to run with this very person in his past, extorting money from the weak and helpless. Regardless, he had already decided that he was going to ignore the man's very existence, and then casually called him by his full name, showing absolutely no respect. In that moment, he had forgotten the age he was currently inhabiting, and that casual call made the local gangster feel profoundly disrespected. He menacingly approached Jong-suk, his face a mask of anger, demanding to know why he was being addressed in such a disrespectful way. But Jong-suk had no intention of reliving his wretched past life, and he tried to completely sidestep the entire conversation, claiming that it had simply been an unintentional mistake. He smugly told him that he was planning to introduce him to the organization, just as he had planned, and as soon as Jong-suk processed those words, he remembered that this was the exact moment from 23 years ago, when this very man had first introduced him to the criminal organization. To put it briefly, a fire of pure rage began to heat his body. He realized with dawning horror that Hien was the #1 cause, the person who had made his past life as utterly messed up as it was. Just seeing the face of that worthless man, Jong-suk was once again completely consumed by a boiling rage. On the other side of this, the gangster was trying to act like a superior, warning him that he most certainly needed to be educated properly about the basics of behavioral skills, but not for long. Hien's smug expression instantly vanished when our protagonist himself commanded him to just shut his mouth. With that declaration, and without a moment's hesitation, Jong-suk's palm rushed forward like a red blur, crashing into his face and making the worthless gangster gasp for air. The punk was completely unable to comprehend it, wondering how such a small kid possessed that much monstrous strength. It was at that very instant when the other man, standing behind the yellow-haired gangster, attempted to ambush Jong-suk. Our hero sensed his presence, and without even the slightest flinch, he effortlessly blocked the attack using only his bare hands. It was abundantly clear that he was not in a particularly good mood, and once again, his former brutal self started to surface and take over. As the lackey tried to press his attack against Jong-suk, he retaliated against the other man with his raw, brutal strength, knocking him unconscious with just one single devastating hit. It wasn't as if this lackey was even worthy of his attention to interfere in a battle of this caliber. On the other side of things, the yellow-haired punk desperately tried to scramble back to his feet, but was once again met with a terrifyingly powerful strike from Jong-suk. The merciless beating continued for quite some time, and after finding himself on top for a brief moment, Jong-suk began to ponder. He realized it was this very man who had dragged him into the organization. If that tragic event had never occurred, he might have lived a genuinely happy life. The yellow-haired punk was pathetically begging him for mercy, while Jong-suk was furiously clenching his fist, looking directly into his terrified eyes, and was about to strike again. Just in that instant, from the depths of his memory, he heard the echo of the angel's powerful voice, asking him what he intended to do if he were granted another chance. That sudden contemplation caused Jong-suk to lose the strength in his hands, and he abruptly stopped himself in the middle of the devastating attack. He turned to the pathetic guy and asked him why he was being so timid. He just wanted to deliver a stern and final warning that he should never get on his nerves ever again, and then he departed from the place, while commanding all of them to just vanish from this location immediately. On his journey back toward the school grounds, he was still pondering the fact that he was not going to squander his second life merely for the sake of some freaking insane street punk, and his resolve was now absolutely unshakable. He was going to live a happy, normal life and attend school on a regular basis. However, the very moment he set foot on school grounds, the entire situation shifted as the bald headmaster began screaming at him, demanding that he drop out of school, which was somewhat expected, but also pre-planned, as he already had countless acts of mischief on his record, including a massive number of untold absences, numerous stealing cases, and a variety of smoking-related issues. The headmaster was completely resolute in his own stubborn ways, determined to force this troublesome kid to drop out of his school, and it appeared as though Jong-suk still hadn't fully remembered that he was now trapped within an 18-year-old's body, acting completely out of character with a full-blown attitude. Now, as the dean was taking his sweet time to scold the boy, reminding him of all the trouble he had previously caused, Jong-suk coolly responded with a plan of how he was going to escape this mess. Effortlessly calming himself down in this tense moment, he requested a civil conversation and told him that from this day forward, he had absolutely no intention of messing things up in school again. He was fully prepared to admit that he was one of the toughest bastards to handle, but he was not willing to leave the school just because of that fact. He then began to play some masterful emotional games, asking the dean for a more detailed explanation of his rash decision, and questioning how he could ever ask a student to just drop out of school, especially after becoming a teacher himself. This time, The bald dean was in a state of shock to witness such a comeback. Seeing him talk in such a surprisingly meaningful manner, remembering his previous thoughts on how he would typically behave, he further began to realize that if he could make this comeback into a good student, it would be a monumental achievement for him as a dedicated teacher. While he was thinking about all the various sequences and circumstances, he confirmed his previous saying and then handed over Jong-suk's book, stating that he had successfully earned his trust once more. The scene then transitions to classroom 224, where a group of students were chattering about some perverted magazines, and when the camera's angle shifted, it became quite clear that not a single person from the entire class was paying attention to the teacher, who was desperately trying to calm all of them down at the same time. Just then, with a powerful kick that blasted open the door, Jong-suk made his grand entrance, announcing his presence and greeting his friends. Something was definitely not right, as the teacher herself was not feeling very well after witnessing the sudden appearance of the infamous Jong-suk, and she blushed a deep shade of crimson from just a single casual wave from him. The scene then flashed back to a previous sunny day, when the new homeroom teacher, Hanji, had first entered the classroom, giving her introduction for the school year. While he was sitting on the back bench, Jong-suk's delinquent friends were doing what they always did best. Hanji was feeling incredibly embarrassed by their inappropriate comments, and then they brought up our key man for the day. A question regarding Hanji's personal and private life, asking if she was in a relationship, left her completely at a loss for words. Meanwhile, Jong-suk continued his relentless teasing and mocking, acting as if he were about to pounce on the new homeroom teacher. At that precise moment, she was visibly shivering, absolutely horrified to see such a young boy behaving in such a depraved manner. Flashing forward to the present day, Hanji was still trapped in a state of complete denial, and she thoroughly disliked the presence of such a rude and disrespectful boy. Once more, the disruptive backbenchers began to mock her, launching into personal attacks. But this time, Jong-suk, in a completely unexpected and different act, forcefully smashed both of his so-called friends, demanding to know why they were behaving in such a despicable manner. He then strode over to the teacher, sincerely apologizing on behalf of his idiotic friends, leaving the cute teacher to contemplate what had actually just happened. She seriously questioned if the person sitting on the bench was truly Jong-suk. He then turned to the student sitting adjacent to him, who was visibly shivering to see him now sitting at his own desk. Following a little bit of banter between the two classmates, Han-ji still found it impossible to believe that the boy genuinely wanted to study, based on the book that he was now searching for. His friend, pretending to be all nice, but the moment Jong-suk actually looked inside his textbooks, he realized with a shock that he was unable to understand even a single word, since he had never bothered to study before, and as the class concluded, his delinquent friends were not in a particularly good mood, and they demanded to know why he had acted so strangely inside the classroom. But even at that moment too, since they hadn't changed their ways at all, another fist once again fell upon their thick heads. He firmly informed his friends that they were all going to live a good, proper life, and he further ordered them to keep their stupid impulses in check. His friends were in a state of complete and utter shock, and they were completely unable to believe the words he was saying. But he further mocked them while delivering a swift kick to their backs, ordering them to head on out as he was already feeling quite hungry. However, all of his strange actions were being observed by someone, and this time it was unmistakably clear. It was a girl, finally. When the school day finally ended, Jong-suk was enjoying a sip of a Tetra Pak juice, madly exclaiming that he had not tasted this flavor in the past 20 years. This behavior was not particularly liked by the others around him, and he genuinely did not give a damn about what they were all feeling. Just then, his name was called out by someone, and this time, the girl who called him turned out to be a genuine beauty, who was completely astonished to see the presence of that man right there. It appeared as though she was asking him to head on out with their group, and just as one would expect, the other two delinquent backbenchers were already drooling over her stunning beauty, while Jong-suk blushed, thinking to himself if she was really calm. Her mere presence triggered some of his old memories, and it was then that he was called over by an older-looking man, who was surrounded by a few of the school gangsters, asking if he was doing all right or not. Our protagonist immediately identified them as a group who was essentially ruling over this entire school, and according to his memory, he hadn't really had a bad relationship with any of them. He didn't want to lay eyes on them at any time, and he demanded the man get straight to the point. The moment the lead gangster tried to explain what he wanted from him, out of nowhere, Jong-suk just bluntly told him to get off to his mother. At first, the older student didn't realize and simply continued speaking. However, upon the slow realization of what was said, his tone of voice changed, as did his entire menacing aura. It was clear he did not appreciate being called that, and he asked for confirmation. Jong-suk called him by his name once more and then added a new nickname, druggist, to it, as one might have expected. No high school kid would like to be called by that name, and according to his own records, he had never been caught, aside from one single time. The lead gangster was not going to waste any more of his attention on this man, and Jong-suk began to walk away, stating that he should maintain his distance from him from now on. He then further advised the man to go see a doctor before it was too late. It looked like that bold declaration wasn't liked by his little puppies, who were standing just behind him, and one of them then moved forward to try and get a hand on our protagonist, without thinking about the dire consequences of his actions. As one would expect, once again, Jong-suk twisted his arm with a mere flick of his immense power, further intimidating the rest of the lackeys standing in the back. That man still had 3 of his loyal gangsters standing behind him, and he gave the order to all of them to completely demolish the man in front of them. So, in short, all of them were planning to attack him at the same time. Jong-suk, being incredibly intelligent and aware of his surroundings, knew full well that this was not something he could handle all by himself. In a move to frighten them all off, he viciously twisted the rest of the arm he was currently holding, inflicting absolute, searing pain upon him. This brutal action was not liked by all 3 of the remaining lackeys, and he continued to tell them that they should be the ones who are not messing with one of their juniors, as it's simply not fair in the end. Without giving it much more thought, he then challenged the leader of the entire group, Kang Yong-dae, to engage in a one-on-one battle with him. His conditions for this proposed battle were quite simple. If he were to lose, he would give them everything he had, but if he were to win, he would become the new, undisputed boss of the school. The 3 loyal subordinates of Kang Yong-dae were encouraging the man for just heading in and winning that decisive battle, but their leader was taking far too long to decide. So Jong-suk, once again, mercilessly twisted the rest of his subordinate's arm. The leader of the group was keenly aware that this was a well-laid trap, and that this man was baiting him to fight in a one-on-one battle, right here in front of so many watchful eyes. But the main point was that he wasn't really being given a choice in this situation. This entire scenario had already been thought of by the cunning Jong-suk, and he wanted the exact same thing that the man was currently thinking. It all happened precisely as he had already planned it out. Kang Yong-jae told him to just get away from this location, informing him that he would let him off the hook for this one time, and that he should never cross his path ever again. Jong-suk attempted to interrupt him, but Kang Yong-gae firmly denied him, stating that he was letting this incident go for the time being. He began to walk away from the tense scene, thinking that his bluff had worked. If it hadn't succeeded, things could have turned out really bad for him. Kang Yong-gae was left wondering how that man discovered their dark secret, and he was now determined to get revenge for this public humiliation. But he swore he would get his vengeance one day, for sure. Meanwhile, the students of classroom 224 were engaged in their physical training, and Jong-suk was also among them. He was doing exactly as he was instructed, wondering how on earth he was going to manage his personal life after he finally graduates from high school. At that very moment, he noticed a girl standing right in front of him, who was not doing the exercises as she had been instructed. He carelessly started to make fun of her, causing the poor girl to lose what little confidence she had in her figure. Just then, Jong-suk noticed that something was off with the girl, and it was then that he caught sight of a scar on her left hand. That one single thing triggered a flood of painful memories, of a time when the little girl was surrounded by a group of thugs. At that dreadful time, our protagonist was the very one who had bullied her with his lit cigarette. The very next day, a tragic news article in the paper showed a photo of the girl, Sim-jae, and it was confirmed that she had taken her own life right around this same time of the year. At the same time, the other boys were completely engrossed in their basketball game, while Jong-suk was not at all liking what he had done to Sim-jae during the physical training class earlier. A single brief thought made him realize with a jolt that he had forgotten his true purpose for being granted a second chance at this life. For that brief moment, the three people he had interacted with, including the yellow-haired gangster he had just beaten, Kang Yong-gai, and Sim Jae, were all mistakes from his wretched past, and under any circumstances that tragic fact was going to remain the same. There was absolutely nothing he could do about it. But he decided that he could at least apologize for his past mistakes. But when he tried to look for the presence of the young girl, a horrifying realization shook him to his core. She was no longer there, only a small peek of her, and the boys nearby confirmed that something terrible had happened to her. Without wasting a single second to think, he forcefully busted open the nearby gate, roaring what those bastards were currently doing with that poor girl. As he burst through the gate, he delivered a kick to one man's belly, sending him flying to be slammed hard against the far wall. Before the second one could even attempt to explain himself, Jong-suk slapped him viciously across the cheek and threw him down to the floor. None of his so-called friends were able to understand what their leader was doing. However, it was far too late, as Jong-suk continued his relentless beating, demanding that they just get out of this place immediately, and questioning why on earth they were trying to bully the little girl. His eyes were burning with a different kind of terrifying rage, and it looked as if he had the true intention to kill. The moment the second one tried to stop his ferocious assault, asking him why he was doing all of this, he whirled around and delivered a second, brutal punch to his belly, making his eyes practically pop out from the sheer, agonizing pain. Jong-suk paused for a brief moment, and then he ordered them to just shake off and get out of this place, or they would both be killed. The only reason he was holding himself back was because he was still just a 23-year-old high school student. Both of the terrified bullies followed his commands and quickly fled the room, without a single second thought. Jong-suk now realized what the true reason was behind that poor girl committing suicide at that particular moment in time. The girl was now shivering in absolute fear, lying helplessly on the floor, grabbing her own body. The only silver lining was that she hadn't yet taken her own life. After thinking about him, however, everything changed the moment he tried to approach her. She violently shook her head away from his approaching face, actively avoiding him, which was so sudden for him to see, as he was the one who had just saved her from those monstrous bastards. Still, the look in her eyes was telling a completely different story. He tried his best to understand how all of this could have started, and his mind flashed back to the very day when he first met Simja. She, being so innocent, was just picking up her pocket money when he tried to mock her for her gesture. At that time, he had just callously ignored her presence and moved on. One particular day, when he was discussing his minor street fights with his so-called friends, he noticed that the girl was always sitting completely alone with a book, her head always bowed down on her chair, and he wondered why she always ended up like that, and if she truly didn't have any friends at all. He was then informed that the girl had been a complete loner ever since middle school, but even then, it wasn't nearly enough to make Jong-suk feel any sort of kindness towards her, as he had always been inexplicably annoyed by her quiet little face. With no real intention of messing with her too much, he eventually ended up bullying Simjae by relentlessly making fun of her. He took a sick pleasure in seeing someone with tears running down their cheeks. The relentless bullying continued for a significant period of time, and all that the poor little girl was able to do was silently endure. In the end, when the cruel boys finally left the scene, she was left all alone on the floor, still sobbing and shivering in fear. Back in the present, Jong-suk felt a tremendous sense of overwhelming guilt for what he had previously done to that poor little girl. In the past, he was completely different from how he was before, and that's the reason why he tried once again to gently approach the girl. But she shook her head again, unwilling to let him touch her tear-streaked face. Unexpectedly, Jong-suk sincerely apologized for all of his past mistakes and for callously using a cigarette to scar her delicate forearm. The girl was in a state of complete and utter shock, and her tears suddenly stopped running down her pale cheeks. At that very moment, the boy apologized to her again with a red, embarrassed face. As the scene then changed its focus once again, some of the other guys were discussing something amongst themselves while they were looking at the two bastards who had just been busted, all of them covered in immense pain, and grilling over the various teeth which were broken by the powerful man. One of them was completely unable to hold back his simmering anger, and furthermore, he tried to tell Jong-suk that he was going to complain to the local police. Jong-suk didn't seem to care about it in the slightest, and while he was standing up from his seat, He tried to tell them that there was nothing they could possibly do against him. He further added that according to the current laws, assaulting someone would only result in a mere slap on the wrist warning. He then tauntingly asked them what they thought he would do once he was released. Everyone was keenly aware at this time that Jong-suk was pissing in his pants, but he still tried his best to act all cool, giving the man a stark clarification that if he dared to state his misdeeds to the police, he was absolutely certain he would be the one who ended up in custody. That entire heated conversation was overheard by some of the other classmates, and when they started to discuss it amongst themselves again, one of them reconfirmed the very question that had just been posed, which only raised his anger even more. The boy was now at a complete loss for words and went back down to his knees. At that time, Jong-suk shook off the other two who were discussing it and warned them once again not to do anything stupid inside the classroom. That little discussion finally ended, and Jong-suk returned back to his seat, noticing that the teacher still had not yet arrived for the next class. All the other lazy classmates were busy leasing their butts, for the time being at least. He asked one of his adjacent seaters about the current presence of Sim-jae, and he was informed that she had gone back to the school's nurse's office. The boy then mustered up the courage to ask the intimidating man if something had truly happened to the poor girl. That innocent question made Jong-suk vividly remember the pathetic shivering of the girl he had just seen inside that room. At that very moment, he was just desperately wishing that the girl wouldn't do anything dumb. His head was already aching with all of this stressful thinking, and he really wanted to get a little bit of rest. But then another guy informed him that it would be less than 2 minutes before the next school lecture started. The teacher then entered the noisy classroom, telling all the guys that she was going to begin with the Romeo class. Less than 1 minute after the class had started, Jong-suk asked for a pen and a piece of paper from his adjacent seater, and then began to prepare his personal misdeed list, figuring out all the things that he had to fix from his past. The man was absolutely right. What he had done in his past life needed to be corrected first and foremost. He was determined to fix Sim-jae's immense suffering. Even though that was a top priority, Jong-suk took a moment of his time to think about what the only possible way could be to do so. As it seemed, the girl wasn't going to commit suicide at this very moment, but there was still a very high chance that she might in the near future. The only clear answer that came to his mind was making her finally escape from being a perpetual loner. The scene then changed its focus once again, and Hanji was still deeply engaged in reading from the textbook, all sweaty and tired, while the rest of the entire classroom was completely sleepy and lazy, trying their best to shake off their heads from the boring lecture. Jong-suk was already keenly aware that in this particular school, absolutely no one was going to pay any attention to the actual lesson. So his second major target to achieve at that moment was Hanji's pitiful condition. The list of his goals continued to grow. Third, quitting smoking for good. Fourth, stopping all of his swearing. And the most important thing that came to his mind was the fifth item, his dear father. He gave it some serious thought because his father had done countless things for him while working his butt off at the dangerous construction site. And that's precisely why he was so determined to get a good job. As soon as he was able to graduate from college, he continued to ponder and think about it. But then he tried to remove that painful thought from his mind. Throughout this entire ordeal, his prying seatmate was desperately trying to glimpse what our hero was inscribing, and for some reason, Jong-suk found this intrusion deeply unsettling. After a brief but intense period of contemplation and struggle, Jong-suk finally concluded the pact he was forging with his own destiny. At that precise moment, Han-ji, the homeroom teacher, summoned him for a private discussion of great importance. She insisted on having this conversation completely alone, understanding it would be unwise if she were to disrupt the entire class. Their location shifted to the secluded faculty office area, where the young woman attempted to explain the reason she had called him. However, Jong-suk, with his own agenda, cut straight to the point. He then stood with profound respect before the young teacher and sincerely apologized for all of his wicked deeds from the past. This heartfelt apology felt undeniably genuine, and the expression on the teacher's face changed in a profound way. Without a single moment's hesitation, she told the boy that he had truly changed. The statement was so abrupt that Jong-suk had to ask for a reconfirmation. She continued her speech, assuring him that he had indeed undergone a real change. This was something he had desperately hoped for. And at that very moment, with a warm smile gracing her face, she revealed to the young man the true reason she had called him here. It was because she required a very specific favor from him. The teacher pointed out that he possessed a large, imposing physique, far more so than anyone else within the entire class. And this was the very reason that everyone was so terrified of him. With this startling declaration, Jong-suk wondered if her request was going to be to enforce quiet in the classroom or something akin to becoming a class monitor. But Han-ji, on the other hand, asked Jong-suk to take responsibility and prevent anyone from bullying Sim-jae. That was a truly unexpected request. And Han-ji went on to tell him that she already had information, that he was the very one who intervened when someone was trying to bully her. Without wasting another precious second, Young-suk gathered the courage to ask her if the girl was still actually present. According to Han-ji's information, Han-ji had already sent the troubled girl home earlier than the rest of the class. She then further inquired if Young-suk was truly aware that Sim-jae was being systematically bullied at school. The main point was that the girl was far too lenient and passive, and it was incredibly difficult to make her finally understand that she absolutely needed to stand up against the relentless bullying at school. Even though they had already tried literally millions of times, they were completely unsuccessful, a fact which Jong-suk also realized. But then again, he reconfirmed his question with the young teacher, asking if she was okay with entrusting that sensitive matter to someone like him, since she had the clarification that the boy was truly changing. Jong-suk was taken aback by such a profound declaration of faith, and he was thrilled to know that the teacher had recognized his sincere effort. With that resolve, he agreed in front of the teacher to lend his hand and do exactly what she was asking of him. Suddenly, she told him that she needed him to fulfill the task as soon as humanly possible. At that moment, the teacher took a long pause, and then started screaming, denying the very fact that she was the school teacher and he was just a student. There was absolutely no chance of anything like that happening. On the other hand, Jong-suk's demand was deceptively simple. He wanted private English tuition lessons after the school day ended. The teacher required him to be completely honest with her, and he stated that even his ABCs were not properly in line. When it came to the English language, he spoke those words while he was pondering that it was going to be incredibly embarrassing to admit something like that, especially in front of a teacher, but after some deep thought, the teacher agreed to his bold and unexpected request, and she told him she would provide him with supplementary classes after school to help correct his English, all with a brilliant smile on her face. The teacher said this, and Jong-suk, feeling incredibly embarrassed, didn't even think it would be something so exciting. With that, he tried to shake off the awkward conversation and head out from the school grounds, feeling bad for what he had just done. The teacher was still trying her best to recollect how a delinquent boy could have changed so much so fast, and she wondered to herself if she was truly a good teacher after all. The school day ended, and Jong-suk left in the late evening, realizing that the years he had spent in school had already passed him by, and it had been so long before he had experienced school life again in 23 years. At that moment, he noticed the presence of some of the schoolgirls, and being a man, he realized that the 2 years that lay ahead of him could be good if he spent them the same way he was acting that very day. Amidst his talking, he noticed the presence of Sim-jae and wondered if that girl was still here when she had departed from school much earlier. It really was her, and she was standing right in the middle of the road as if nothing was wrong. Calling her over, Jong-suk asked her why she was still lingering there when she had already taken off from the school campus early. The two of them were now looking at the breathtaking setting sun. She told him that she just didn't feel like going home yet. Jong-suk only asked her not to skip school under any circumstances, and furthermore, he told her that he was going to teach her how to stand up to all the bullying. Even if the case were to arise where she was going to be bullied, she just needed to inform him, and he would come and help her out. Sim-jae couldn't possibly understand what had caused this sudden, profound change in Jong-suk's personality. Jong-suk then reconfirmed if someone was truly, actively bullying her. He then answered the question himself, explaining that her thought process about him was completely right, as he was once one of them, but his entire process had completely changed. He gently shook the head of the worried girl, properly consoling her that he was now trying to live a good, honest life. From that period onward, they looked like a cute, budding couple trying to spend some precious time together beside the beautiful setting sun. However, Jong-suk quickly came back to his senses and told the girl that she shouldn't be thinking badly of him. In that situation, the girl quickly apologized for her thoughts, and as soon as the traffic signal finally turned green, Jong-suk began to walk off from the place. Heading toward the girl, it felt like she wanted to say something to him, but when he asked her about it, she just shyly denied it. However, Jong-suk already had a strong feeling that the girl was deeply thankful to him. Waving back at the celestial angel, unbeknownst to him, the being was watching him and realizing that he was trying his absolute best. This was just a very small part of his past mistakes, and something far more interesting awaited him in the future. Meanwhile, Jong-suk was wondering what he was going to have for a meal when he got home to eat, and when Jong-suk finally turned back to his home, he was feeling quite shabby, so he took out the crumpled piece of paper where he had written down all the things he needed to correct in his life. Jong-suk was sure that he could take care of all the problems concerning the school, but the major, looming problem in front of him was what on earth he was going to do after he finally graduated. Graduating with only a basic knowledge of English was not going to help him. He then turned to the nearby calendar, thinking that it was currently the year 1995, just before the major financial crisis around the world was going to start. At that time, all of the world's stock prices would plummet dramatically, and he was absolutely certain that if he bought a large bunch of stocks, he could easily become a billionaire within just a few short minutes. It was a completely foolproof plan for him to execute, but after a little bit more thought, he rejected that very idea, realizing what the angel had told him. It was all about being truly honest in his repentance for his past. He didn't want to take the easy shortcut of Miss Deves to earn a massive amount of money. Just then, he turned his head to the clock and realized that his old man was going to be home early. So he went back to the kitchen to prepare some ramen noodles. He was still mischievous enough to try and was just about to grab the very first bite of the delicious food when someone knocked loudly on the front door. He found his old man coming back from the grueling construction site. His father once again was deeply concerned if his son had skipped his classes. Jong-suk just looked at his father's weary face without providing any answer. The scene then violently shifts to a flashback inside a cold, dark jail cell, where a guard had informed Jong-suk that someone was waiting in the visiting room to meet with him. As he reached the bleak meeting room, he found his elderly father looking incredibly concerned for him. However, Jong-suk didn't pay any attention whatsoever to the old man and turned his back to get back inside his dreary prison cell. His father was continuously and desperately begging him to talk to him. However, Jong-suk verbally abused his own heartbroken father, leaving him completely and utterly astonished at what he had said. For some added clarification, he cruelly mocked his father for not even being able to bail his own son out. Those brutal words were like a sharp knife plunging into his heart, which made the poor father fall onto the cold floor on his knees and cry. Jong-suk, on the other hand, was realizing that this was the best possible option for his poor father, to just forget about his criminal son and try to live his life to the fullest. A few lonely days passed by inside the cell, and one of the prison guards informed him that his elderly father had already passed away. The tragic reason was stated as absolute and overwhelming stress in the report the guard handed him. It was depicted in the report that the father's body was only found after a long time, as there had been absolutely no one to attend to him on the fateful night of his tragic death. Inside Jong-suk's cell, there was a continuous, heartbroken sobbing, and when the camera angle finally changed, it was clearly visible that Jong-suk was crying his eyes out uncontrollably, shivering and desperately apologizing to his deceased father. Back in the present, his father once again screamed loudly to get him back to his senses, telling him to properly greet his father when he came back home. Jong-suk completely ignored him and further asked him to get himself ready and eat some of the ramen. This was quite sudden, and so Jong-suk clarified that he was just trying his best to be a good son, so his father should get himself ready to eat. For the first time in a very long while, the weary father realized that his wayward son had finally matured, and his sense of embarrassment peaked. They both sat down together for dinner, and as they looked at each other and sipped the hot ramen, Jong-suk began to remember his much younger days, when he didn't like his father at all. There was no one who would like a father who was deep into his alcoholism, not caring at all about his own family, and someone who would abandon his mother just because of his addiction. Everything had changed after Jong-suk was finally born, as his father began to show a different and better approach to life, trying to work extremely hard on the dangerous construction site to earn enough money for their family's livelihood. At first, Jong-suk had thought his father was only trying to earn money to fulfill his own drinking needs, but it wasn't very long before he finally realized that his father had completely given up drinking for good. Once he had left his addiction behind, things in their life took a twisted and dark turn, as he was continuously getting caught up by the detectives for his misdeeds. His poor father cried numerous times just because of him, and he saw his own belief completely broken off by his own son. Jong-suk finally realized all of that now, and as the scene then turned, he was shivering and sobbing while crying uncontrollably over his food, dropping his salty tears into his ramen noodles. The food must have been incredibly salty. When his father inquired if Jong-suk was really crying right in front of him, he quickly answered the awkward conversation, stating that the spices in the ramen were something much more than he could normally handle. At that very time, he cleaned his teary eyes and reflected all this pleasure up to the angel, thanking him for what he had been so generously provided. At that moment, both of them went back to get some sleep, and not long after, Jong-suk's father woke up once again, packing his things to head to the harsh construction site, while rubbing his aching back due to the intense pain. Unexpectedly, Jong-suk woke up and asked his father to rest, as he was not going to let him go without seeing a proper doctor first. His stubborn father denied any kind of rest at all, and was determined to head back to the office to work. It was then when Jong-suk, embarrassed and with a beet red face, asked his old man to please come back home safely and not hurt himself under any circumstances. His father looked at him with a confused face, but then he smiled a little bit, giving him his assurance of doing so as he left. As his father finally left, Jong-suk looked up at the vast sky and told the angel that he was more than ready for hell, as long as his father was going to have good and honest conditions, and for that very reason, he was always ready to choose the wrong and difficult path. Finally, it was time for him to head back to school once again. As he was on his way, he was yawning and feeling completely tired. His whole entire body was aching from pure laziness, and he was giving his best effort to just stretch it out, thinking about the next 2 years that he had to pass through. As he passed by the familiar spot once again, the yellow-haired gangster was sitting there, casually smoking a cigarette and sitting right in front of him. Jong-suk thought about the dire consequences once again of having disrespected his senior-level gangster, making him completely lose his calmness. In such deep embarrassment, he was not able to do anything and just showed the man continuous and useless rubbish talks, asking him to come back to his own senses as he was trying to act all weak on himself. Jong-suk, with a wide grin on his face, informed him that he was not a real gangster at all, and it was time for him to get back to his own senses, get a proper job, and live his life out peacefully. Once again, he simply walked off from the scene, putting the pathetic man on the dirty floor, agonizing in his own anger. He should come back to his own self. Not long after, he reached back to the school grounds and was astonished to see the tripping of boys and girls all around the classroom so very early in the morning. Everyone was already indulged in their own various tasks, and Jong-suk was confused to see so many of them at such an early time, including the timid Sim-jae. As soon as he was finally at his own desk, he started to wonder how he could possibly settle things with the little girl. He decided to ask his adjacent seat mate, Paul, to switch his seats with Sim-jae for just a little bit. Paul agreed to his request and left his seat. When the girl finally reached him, he asked her to sit right beside him for a private discussion. Sim-jae agreed to his request, but she sat on the far bench. Jong-suk started to look at her from all possible directions, trying his best to find something odd or out of place in her. The only real way to make her famous in the school was through improving her outward appearance, but he was keenly aware that the girl didn't look so bad in her current self. Jong-suk tried to understand her better and then asked about her glasses, asking her if she would be fine without wearing them. When he got even a little bit of confirmation from her, he took off the thick glasses from her face. When those ugly glasses were finally removed, that meek girl looked like a genuine baddie, for sure, and she pleaded with him for her glasses back. On the other hand, Jong-suk was taken aback by the girl's stunning looks without the glasses, and he further confirmed her actual eyesight. he held up 3 of his fingers, asking her if she could read it or not. The timid girl was successful in doing that, and it was then that he realized that the girl had looked like an old geezer due to the incredibly old-fashioned style of her glasses. With that new understanding, he asked the girl not to wear her glasses from that point on. All of this was being secretly witnessed by Paul, who was looking at them with a great deal of confusion. Being a good guy, Jong-suk handed her the glasses back, asking the girl to bring him some money later on. Those words sounded a bit like bullying, and so the little girl agreed to it while having tears in her eyes. When Jong-suk tried to explain that it was not at all meant to be bullying, she apologized and agreed to keep it a secret from the homeroom teacher. In any case, at the very end of it, he just sighed in defeat and told her that the 1 week she was going to spend with him was surely going to change her entire life for the better. For sure, as time passed by in the school, Jong-suk was lying on the bench, fast asleep in the middle of a class. It was then when a man entered the classroom with a loud bang on the door, asking for the presence of the sleeping Jong-suk. The other classmates were utterly confused about his sudden presence, and one of his former friends who had been beaten by Jong-suk just yesterday was grinning with pure happiness for some strange reason. The man then roughly shook the sleep off of Jong-suk, asking him to wake up, and when Jong-suk finally woke from his slumber, the man pointed his finger accusingly at him, asking him to fight right away, without providing any given reason. Jong-suk was completely taken aback by this. Once again, he was wondering what the identity of that man was. Before he could think any more about this strange situation, the man himself told him that he was here in support of one of his friends, whom he had busted so badly just yesterday. Realizing that the man was truly called here by one of his former friends, Jong-suk confirmed this, and with an absolute resolution, he hurried to fight, but Jong-suk was still quite confused if he was doing all of this just because of that. But it wasn't the right time for him to think about those little minor things. He started to analyze the man who was standing right in front of him, trying his best to understand his true identity. Being totally carefree, Jong-suk tried to shake off the insistent man, asking him to just head back to his own school quietly. He then pondered why he would ever get himself engaged in any kind of relationship that he had in his wretched past life. Those words that he spoke were sincere. And while Jong-suk was yawning to remove the tiredness from his face, he quickly delivered a powerful and unexpected punch right on the face of the man. The surprise attack surely made him incredibly angry. The other people who were watching the fight were a bit concerned, including a cute couple, while John was so very happy to see the fight. He then told Jong-suk that the man in front of him was an unprofessional boxer with a license, and it was time for him to really fight for something. Jong-suk cleared away his nose, which was now bleeding, thinking that even though he was trying his best to live a peaceful life, absolutely no one was letting him, and with that newfound confidence, he asked the man to come up and promised that he would teach him how to deliver a real powerful punch. The news of this epic fight spread around the school like a raging wildfire, and everyone was rushing to the classroom to see how they were viciously fighting. The epic battle was between our hero, Jong-suk, and the boxer, Do-jun. Among those who were hearing about it was the beautiful girl from before, who was much more interested in the second name of the fight. She then turned her attention to the classroom once again, and the so-called professional boxer, Do-jun, was delivering a continuous barrage of punches to Jong-suk. Jong-suk was realizing this through the sheer impact of those powerful punches, but he had already planned far ahead for the future of this fight. He knew that those amateur punches were not going to last more than 2 minutes, and that was the basic thought process in Do-jun's mind as well. But being a supposedly professional fighter, he had already meticulously planned out his very next move. As Do-jun foolishly dropped his guard, Jong-suk looked for a critical opening and landed an intense, powerful punch, giving the professional boxer the exact opening that he was waiting for. It was the very moment that Do-jun had been desperately waiting for. It had been incredibly obvious right from the very start of the fight, but all of his plans then turned to dust when Jong-suk stopped and delivered a powerful, low kick right on the vulnerable knees of his unsuspecting opponent. That single fierce attack made the tall man shiver in agonizing pain. He called for Jong-suk to cover up his face, thinking that this brutal battle was turning into a real ring match. Do-jun was once again boiling with uncontrollable anger, and this time, he tried to deliver a powerful punch without thinking about the circumstances. As was expected, it was easily dodged by the skilled Jong-suk, but after telling him all about it, Jong Suk delivered one of the most powerful punches of the entire battle, right to Do Jun's unprotected left cheek, knocking him brutally down to the floor. Do Jun realized the painful bed that he had just fallen into. Even after being a so-called professional, it wasn't going to end with just one single solitary punch. So he grabbed Do Jun tightly by the collar of his shirt and started delivering a continuous flurry of slaps to his left and right cheeks, intensively sweeping the floor with his face. The other classmates and other various onlookers were astonished to see such a brutal attack. Do Jun had already asked for some relief, and he started pathetically apologizing for his foolish actions. After emerging as the clear and undisputed loser, he then told Jong Suk that he was not one of the friends of those two wretched bastards. He closed the distance between them and told the man that his presence was never imagined to be here. He then clarified that the man was sent here by Kane Yong to take his revenge for what Jong Suk had done to him. The last day, Do Jun now had tears welling up in his eyes, but he still couldn't bring himself to answer the pressing question. Jong Suk grabbed him tightly by the collar once more, trying to deliver the final, killing punch to end his very life. But just then, out of absolutely nowhere, a loud, desperate scream asked him to stop his attack. It was the timid Sim Jae, who wanted to stop him from attacking a professional boxer any further. Jong Suk followed her desperate orders and stopped his assault, and then left the crowded classroom to head to the nearby washroom. He told them all to inform the homeroom teacher about what had happened. Jong Suk then headed straight to the washroom, washing his hands that had just delivered those incredibly powerful punches. He was now remembering his dark, past life, when he had taken down several men with just his bare, brutal strength, allowing all the spectators to enjoy the violent moment, as if they were watching a very exciting movie. His realization told him from the very start that this was his mistake. But the point was that so much precious time had already passed, and he hadn't had the chance to truly understand. When he looked at the terrified faces of his classmates, it was crystal clear that there was no real acceptance from them. He saw the absolute, raw fear that was melting from Sim Ji's eyes. He had no other viable options left to him, and that was when he realized he still had a very long way to go if he ever wanted to achieve something meaningful. His focus was now on countering the group of the young guy. He was keenly aware that this time, the man was not someone who would let go of things so easily. He was already on the radar of the school's dean, and Jong Suk was trying his best to brace himself for the coming future. On the other side of the nearby wall, someone was coming towards him with a lot of papers. As was expected, both of them burned the various papers, dropping them all over the messy floor. Jong Suk turned to see who had the courage to do such a thing, and he found a girl with long, black, shining hair, apologizing for not being able to see through all the various papers. This time, Han Ji was in a very appropriate position, and Jong Suk was drooling to look at something while she spread her legs out like a sandwich in between them. Being embarrassed enough by this, she quickly closed the doors, and Jong Suk looked behind with a red face. He looked at everything while he just started to collect the papers, and then handing them over to her. Han Ji told him that it was just for him, and as he looked into the sheet, B.C.D. was written out properly with proper pronunciation guides. It was something like it was the very basics of the English language. She had prepared it all for him in order to give him his supplementary classes. Confirming that she had prepared all of those by staying up all night long, Han Ji just talked it off, stating that it was different from the textbooks. She smiled warmly and told him to go with the flow and just read it. And furthermore, she allowed him to come to her if anything bothered him in that new book. When he reached back to the classroom, the teacher was teaching them one of the subjects, while he was rolling the papers that were provided to him by Han Ji. Realizing that she was really giving her true effort for someone like him, there was a noticeable blush on both of his cheeks. He decided to take off the topic of the gangsters and start learning the English his miss had so carefully prepared for him. He was now reading a B.C.D. like nothing, and his adjacent seatmate, Paul, was looking at him with deep concern. There was a little bit of chatter between them, and Jong Suk was too happy just to be able to read out a single word properly. In the English language, the teacher was teaching them all about the 7 sword branches, and Jong Suk laughed, dipping into that particular state, as those poor bastards were not at all aware of what was waiting for them in the coming year of 1995, when the great crisis was going to hit. Paul was incredibly confused by such a strange declaration. Time passed in the school once again, and this time, Jong-suk was not able to hold himself back. All the bells were ringing around the bush, and his head was giving up from pure and utter tiredness. Paul once again came over to him and told him that the next class was music. Jong-suk realized that the boy was trying to help him out all the time, and the boy then wondered why Jong-suk was looking at him with such a big and strange smile. Embarrassed by himself, he tried to poke his finger at the curious man, waiting for a very long while, gathering up the courage to ask the name of the kid sitting next to him. In-ho was confused, wondering if that man was for real or not, as it had already been a full month since they were sitting together. Since then, they all turned to the music classroom, and Jong-suk was informed that he could sit anywhere if he wanted to. Yawning widely on his face, he decided to sit at the back of the classroom to get some tired sleep. And then he heard some of the classmates making fun of his to-be-love, asking her to just sit around the far corner of the room. She accepted their cruel request without any sort of hesitation. Sim-jae went to go sit around the corner of the long bench, and Jong-suk joined her without saying a single word to her, making her even more confused than she already was. That was a truly awkward moment for both of them, and so they clarified that he had just sat at that particular position because he wanted to study very hard for a change. That strange attitude was not liked by those mean girls, for sure, and they immediately started whispering amongst themselves. So when they went back to the original music, Jong-suk was too pissed off to see that there was water or something all over the bench of the poor Sim-jae. With some very colorful cursing words, he, being in absolute anger, tried to rush to them while the girls quickly stopped him in his tracks, telling him that it was all right and there was nothing to worry about. Jong-suk reconfirmed with her if that was so normal for her, and so the girl did, stating that it was not the first time, for real. He was not able to do anything about it, and he just left the place with a grimace and a grin on his face, asking her to do whatever she wanted to do about it. Sim-jae, with a pure and surprising calmness, looked at her wet bench and started to clean it off using a small towel. In-ho then came to Jong-suk to tell him that in the morning, she had looked pretty much happier while she was talking to him, further embarrassing the man with his words, and so he clapped on the head of his adjacent seatmate. During all of that time, his eyes were stitched to the poor girl who was cleaning the wet bench, like a poor soul, incapable of doing anything to help herself. As the school day finally ended and Sim-jae was heading back to her home, she heard someone asking her if she was really and truly satisfied with hitting herself. She genuinely apologized, and Jong-suk was pissed off by that apology. He had heard all of that time from the very beginning, inquiring why she had stopped him in the middle of the fight during that morning's brawl. And she told him that it was violence, and it had been bad for ages. Jong-suk sighed and then told her that, even though violence and fighting were indeed bad, she should not allow anyone to get themselves bested without any given reason. For the very important teaching of the day, he then told her that she was the one who was allowing the others to get to her, and the true reason behind them all doing so is not because they truly hated her or didn't like her, but because she was so incredibly easy to bully, that none of them could possibly stop themselves from delivering that pain to her out of absolutely nowhere. The girl then spoke that she was already keenly aware of, that all of that had happened because she herself allowed for it to happen, by being an idiot and far too easy. At that time, she remembered all of her past sufferings while showing her tears, telling the man that she had accepted all those terrible things because she thought that if she showed any kind of resentment, she would surely be facing something much harder than that. In her own regards, she always thought that if only she was going to not say anything and just accepted it, there might be a chance that she would lead a somewhat peaceful life. Her heartbroken sobbing continued all that time, and Jong-suk was looking at her with a confused and pained face. And as soon as he got an answer in his own mind, he grabbed the hand of the girl and started pushing her further on, asking the girl to follow him to the place he wanted to take her. As they headed on their way, Sim-jae was astonished to see that he had taken her to a lively arcade, and he was telling her that it was a place where bookworms, like her, were not going to be found. For the very first game at the arcade, he was going to use the powerful punching game, and he further asked the girl to look at him very closely. He then delivered one of the deadliest punches on the powerful machine, and as the past record of 758, which was the highest score, was broken with just one single punch, leading to an incredible 782 points. The people there were totally astonished to see the immense strength of that guy, and the little girl, who was not at all aware, started clapping her hands, as it was going to be her chance next to do so. to back away from this intimidating task. But Jong-suk began to toy with her resolve, commanding her to face the challenge no matter the outcome. Hesitantly, she stepped into the challenger's guard position, and as her shyness was making the boy even more embarrassed, he moved behind her, instructing her on the perfect position of her legs, her hands, and the precise direction she needed to face to unleash a truly devastating punch. He was about to lecture her on the crucial hip rotation. When the lesson was complete, Sim Jae's face had turned completely crimson. Finally prepared, he urged her to deliver the decisive punch, telling her to imagine she was striking someone directly, right on their face. Unexpectedly, she summoned every ounce of her strength and unleashed the strike. In the middle of the crowded arcade, she stood there in a state of utter confusion, realizing the impact was far louder than she ever imagined it would be, and he praised her enthusiastically for it, asking if all her pent-up agony had finally vanished with that blow. As soon as he received her assurance, he revealed that this was his sacred place, for whenever he was furious with someone, and could not fight back because of his promise of due diligence, while he was playing on the machine, he asked her frankly if she was a complete idiot. The poor little girl started to sob once again, and he continued, asking if it was right for her to be bullied. This was the exact reason. She needed to take a firm stance and get that burden off her chest, gathering the courage to finally tell them that she was not up for the bullying any longer. She was provided with this chance, yet the girl wasn't fully convinced. And so, Jong-suk pointed directly to himself, telling her that he was doing all of these things precisely because he was the one who was sorry. At that moment, from out of nowhere, he pointed out his pinky finger to watch the surprised girl, stating that he was going to promise to do anything in his power to prevent her from ever being bullied again. He wanted to ask her to just come to him right away if any other trouble came up. And the girl agreed to the pact by making her own pinky promise and showing it to him, officially ending up in a sacred promise. As the two of them walked away, he tried to playfully ask the girl about the face she was thinking of while punching the machine. And it looked like someone was telling them from far behind that the man was very much happy to finally know the real reason behind him changing so drastically. And when he got to know what the point of weakness for the man was, he decided to start playing with it. The scene then turned to the very next day where Sim Jae, thinking about the solemn pinky promise she had made with Jong-suk, was provided with the sight of Jong-suk. The last day before the return of help was so incredibly sudden, and just as a man banged his fist on the table of the girls, completely startling her, it was none other than the leader of the gangster group of the entire school. At first, he offered a mock apology, and when the girl inquired about the identity of the mysterious man, he introduced himself as a savior who was going to save her from peril. Further elaborating, the man told her that he was aware that Jong-suk used to relentlessly bully him in the initial days of school, and the ugly mark on her right hand was the evidence for sure. Sim Jae wondered how that bastard was aware of something so personal, and it turned out that it was Jong-suk's supposed friend, who had dragged him inside of that treacherous mess. As the leader was now playing with him, he was continuously cussing out his own supposed friend, and so the leader then turned his attention back to the girl, asking her to come along with them, to say something in the teacher's immediate presence. He even told her the exact words that she should speak in front of them, including that Jong-suk was still hurting her and bullying her relentlessly from the very start, and it was the scar which was given as solid evidence. Apart from that, he had also collected two of the other guys, who were the very friends that Jong-suk was so proud of. They would act as the key witnesses in that particular case. He was absolutely sure it would be the key to his expulsion from the school, as the dean's eyes were already on that troublesome bastard. That single act would provide the clarity that he was not going to finish those 2 years in that school under any possible circumstances. Furthermore, the man then gave her the assurance that if he would be the one standing right behind her, then no one else was going to bully her. However, Sim Jae told the man that even so, it was the case before that point. The man had already changed and was trying to help her in every regard. The leader sighed in frustration and called her a naive person by making up the story that he was trying to act all cool just because he didn't want to get expelled from school. And he was also keenly aware that If she even said a single bad word against him in front of anyone, he was not going to be able to complete his graduation at the school and would get expelled. Sim J showed some assurance to it, stating that she surely was a stupid girl and that maybe she had misunderstood everything. His intentions gave the leader a false hope that she was being convinced. But his happiness did not last long, as the girl, while shivering, denied his cruel fate, stating that the boy was genuinely trying to help her, and that was the reason she was going to trust him completely. Those defiant words were enough for the leader to lose his calm, and so he instantly grabbed the terrified girl, asking her to do whatever he told her to do, or else her own life in the school was going to be miserable from that point onwards. Not only that, he also added to the chilling conversation that he had already planned for the death of Jong-suk, sending some of his people outside to take care of him. As for his proclamation, he surely had been dead on his way to the school, as some of his men were already standing at the front gate, handling some of the deadly weapons for his welcome. Sim J was crying, even with the thought of such harsh things happening to Jong-suk. But her prayers helped, as the man entered the classroom, raising and further shattering the hopes of the wicked leader. How he was present there was a complete mystery. Not so long. The business in which the man was trying to play with one of his loves enraged him, and he charged towards the man. Time moved forward, and it was seen that some of the seniors were trying to attack Jong-suk, and he was giving his best to knock them all down with just one single powerful blow. His attack was successful, as the man was knocked to the floor. He then took one of the baseball bats to make them understand that they needed to know their places. The man once again told them that they should not be doing such things. In the morning, when they were trying to get back to the school, he asked if it was the gangster group who asked them to do so. The senior did not bother to reply to his question, and then, with a wicked grin on his face, told him that he didn't think that he was smart, as he was done, for sure. Jong-suk was not able to understand what the man was talking about, and so the senior further told him that he was going to be bashed, along with one of the loner girls, for sure. Just then, Jong-suk asked for a proper explanation, and by grabbing him, confirmed to talk properly with him. The senior was scared and threw out the words, which gave the clarification that all of them were talking about Sim J, for sure. Not so long. The backup for the man arrived at the place, rushing towards him for the deadly attack. But since Jong-suk was now aware of their real evil motive, he took the baseball bat and started heading right into the middle of the hovel to fight the first man. He killed him right on the face with the bat. For the second man, he delivered a strong bat hold attack to the arm of the man, making him fall to the hard floor. In the midst of all that, one of the guys was able to sneak behind him and deliver a bat strike right on his head. Thinking that it really worked and would surely get him back to his senses, earlier than he had imagined, Jong-suk matched this attack with his own powerful knee strike, right on the nose of the terrified man. The other seniors were even scared to see that a man was capable of doing such things, and it was then that one of the others reminded them that he was just a second-year-old kid. That motivation was enough for them. Jong-suk was also fired up to show them what he was truly made of. The battle continued for a while, and as was expected, Jong-suk emerged victorious in the end, bashing all of them to the floor and heading out to the classroom. Immediately after, he opened the door, and the first sight he saw was totally unexpected. The leader of the group was already holding on to the girl, someone he loved dearly, while the other two were totally confused about his presence. In such a state, Jong-suk was boiling in a fiery anger, and he rushed forward for the attack, without thinking about the consequences he may face. At that stage, the leader's guard came up to the front to block him from heading directly to the man. However, Jong-suk was easily able to deliver two of the most deadly punches to take them down in just one single go. He was so indulged in battling with the crooks that he had forgotten about the main dish of the fight, and it was then that the main dish, the leader, delivered a powerful push right on his back, making him fall hard onto the benches. Sim J was shivering and sobbing all the time, while the leader started using the man, asking if he dared to deliver a punch to the senior. He was continuously attacking Jong-suk relentlessly, reminding him that he was the one who was the leader of that school, and was not going to let that man take over him with his presence. In any case, Sim J had had enough, and tried to block the leader from further attacking, requesting him to stop, as she was ready to do whatever he wanted them to do. The leader did not agree to it, and again slapped the girl, calling her someone from the streets and dropping her to the floor. It was an act that he should not have performed, but it was very motivating for Jong-suk. He stood up after being badly injured, and delivered one of the most deadly punches of the fight, telling the man by intuition that he needed to block it. However, before he could even do so, the punch was already connected to his shocked face, and it was enough to send the man down to the floor. Every other presence in the classroom was totally shocked to see that one of the leaders of the school was now defeated by a little insignificant thug. Sim-jae reached Jong-suk and asked if he was doing well or not, and further apologized to him, because she realized that it was all because of her that all this had happened to him. Jong-suk ignored her and then called for everyone's attention, including the ones who dared to touch the hair of his girl, or for the girls who were bullying her without any reason. There was a single, clear message for all of them. In any case, if that continued, he was going to kill them all. Just then, the dean of the school entered the battlefield classroom, and after knowing the presence of Jong-suk there, he declared that if he was the reason for all of this mess, he would surely be expelled from the school immediately. Right then, the dean was continuously cussing our poor protagonist, asking how he dared to do so, and informing him about his expulsion. He then turned to the leader of the group to tell him that it was not like he was going to get off so easily, and somehow the leader was happy and ready to give anything, even a little bit of embarrassment in front of his juniors, until Jong-suk was going to be expelled from the school. Jong-suk realized that it was his intention all along. He cussed himself as he realized that he was there because of not controlling himself properly. He was going to end his second life also without any school period. Suddenly, his intention changed completely, as he thought of what Sim-jae was going to face when she was expelled. He was sure that if anything like that happened, he was going to crush that entire group, to the point that they wouldn't be able to think of what to do next. That intent was even felt by him. But before he could proceed, someone stopped his hand from moving, and it was Sim-jae who came in front of the dean. The dean, at first, did not recognize her at all. She introduced herself from class 4, telling the man that if Jong-suk was going to be expelled, then she was also going to leave the school with him. That declaration was unexpected and everyone was shocked by it. Sim-jae told him that Jong-suk did so because she was being blackmailed. But the dean was not ready to accept something like that. He was in the middle of thinking when Hanji approached the dean from behind, agreeing with her current situation. She said that even though violence was not the right cause, they needed to investigate what the purpose behind the battle was, as there might be a chance that Jong-suk really helped a friend. The leader, while sitting on the floor, did not take a liking to such things at all, and through the bruises and injured face, he was wondering why all those street girls were backing up Jong-suk. Time passed, and this time, embarrassment for the man was at its peak, as he was the one cleaning the toilets. The only thing of relief for him was that he was relieved from being expelled. To his surprise, even Sim-jae was waiting outside the toilet for him to go home. Together, Jong-suk took the chance to ask her to get inside and clean. However, the little girl was not going to get into a boy's bathroom, for sure. Suddenly, Jong-suk's voice changed to a little seriousness, and he asked the reason for helping him in the moment of most need. He was totally aware that even if she had told a little bit about his mistakes to her, it would have been perfect revenge for the girl. That chance, Sim-jae gave a single reason. The promise, and the promise was that Jong-suk was going to help her from any kind of problems of being bullied. At first, Jong-suk took time to realize that point, but then he laughed it off and made it pretty clear that he was going to take care of it. It was an embarrassing moment for both the girl and the guy, and so Jong-suk started a conversation, asking the girl if she bought the money she had asked for earlier. Since then, they turned to after school, where the little girl was taken aback by the presence she was in. It was the entertainment garden, and numerous girls, all dressed in good clothes, were waiting for the men's presence. Jong-suk did not talk about it and asked her to get in. While she was being taken aback and brought to the location, she must have been curious about what was going on. He wanted to have fun, but did not like it and picked a finger on her head, asking her to just stop with the weird things and follow him. As always, someone again was trailing them from behind, wondering about their school uniforms. He further thought if, why some new high school uniforms were in that entertainment district. Jong-suk had entered a home and the cute girl was welcome, but she was taken aback by the presence of a high school student in such a location as this. Jong-suk told her that it was not like he could not be there, and then handed over the girl, asking them to take care of her and make her comfortable for sure. The lady of the shop started with her work immediately, and at first, while trimming Sim-jae's hair, she pressed such shiny strands of hair, and was impressed by how beautiful they looked. In her regard, those hairs were really fine. However, the point was, it looked like they had not received any kind of treatment since the past year. The little girl held the courage to tell the salon owner that she had never been to one such treatment in all her life. The barber was stunned to hear that proclamation from her. For these days, girls going to salons was so very normal, and as she looked at her up close, she found that the lady had good eyes and nice, clear skin. The conversation between both of them continued, where the barber inquired about her school, and Jong-suk was sipping tea nearby, lying ahead on the couch all alone. For the barber, the school in which they both were was famous for having very difficult children, and so it was astonishing for her to see such a pretty and calm child from the very same school as him. Jong-suk did not like such proclamations and was angrier at the barber. Just then, the girl from before approached Jong-suk, calling him a big brother and asking if he brought his girlfriend. Jong-suk did not like this, as she was younger than him, but still, a lady called him a big brother. Finally, when Jong-suk realized the situation, he understood that he was surely 23 years older than his current age, and it was the reason behind such an intuition. Just then, the lady changed her attitude and started a conversation, realizing something about him. But before he could comprehend, she called him a pervert, hanging around to make someone pregnant. The lady then laid on the couch, leaning towards Jong-suk flirtatiously, making him stumble backwards. However, Jong-suk was a Sigma male who was going to love a single girl, and so he asked the beautiful lady to look at how beautiful her own girl was going to look. After the haircut, finally, when Sim-jae looked into the mirror, she looked much more beautiful than she was before. Jong-suk just then approached her from behind, praising her for the perfect cut, and realizing that still there was something missing that they were going to look out for in the next meetings. The barber praised the lady, stating that she was really beautiful and needed some more detailing, and so the girl lingered. It was time for both of them to head out, and before doing so, Jong-suk mocked the earlier girl, asking if her girl was not one of the most beautiful right now. The changes between the ladies were complete, and while both of them were heading out, the barber realized that they were not acting like normal students, but rather more like a husband and wife than just a simple couple. The definition was having a mean husband and a kind, gentle wife. As both of them headed out, Jong-suk asked the lady to get her clothes a little shorter by the tailor, while the lady was concerned if the teachers were not going to like it, and someone was passing by them, the one who had told them before they entered the entertainment district. That man bumped into Jong-suk and told them that it was not the place for high schoolers to roam around, but Jong-suk did not like such an attitude coming from someone who didn't know him any better. However, the attitude changed once he saw something familiar in the stranger and called him out as Jang-sung, leading the inquiry if he knew about the man. But he just shot off the conversation and started pondering the presence of that old man at that location. Giving a little more thought, Jong-suk realized that in his past life, he was the first person he had killed in his gangster life. Jong-suk had finally reached home and was laying back, thinking about that man and wondering why such things were happening. The story behind the man was that he was an important person of the Tiger Skull Gang, one of the rival gangs to his own. From the start, they wanted to get rid of him, and being a part of that gang gave him the opportunity to do so. When he met the man, he realized that he was already heading up in his organization. Still, something was wrong in the calculations, as there was no way a student and a gangster like them would know each other at such an early stage of life. This was giving him a single thought, that it was the angel who was behind all of that. That thought plagued our protagonist, but something he couldn't take all at once. So he decided to relax, as he was not going to contact him in any case. While he was developing himself, his father told him to just go back to sleep, as he needed to get out for work in the morning. Jong-suk decided to leave it and just went back to sleep. In the middle of the night, he woke up just feeling all lazy and tired, and the moment he reached the kitchen, he found someone standing there, which was unfamiliar to his dad, for sure. At the moment when he turned, he saw the presence of the soul of Zhang Sheng. Asking for recognition, he was playing his role to perfection, mocking his own death, and asking if he really wanted to succeed in his gangster life. With such an act, it was calling the man a murderer, and Zhang Suk was stumbling with each and every proclamation. The little chit-chat continued on, and during all that time, Zhang Suk was shivering in fear, calling that it must be a terrible dream. The dream was turning extraordinarily fearful when that man's soul tried to attack Zhang Suk, leading Zhang Suk to jump out of his bed, totally confused. Finally, as was expected, that thing turned out to be a dream, and in any case, he did not like such a dream for sure. Once again, the bell rang and he wondered who was there. As he picked up the call, he found the teacher on the other side of the line, and the teacher was showing her concern, because he had not been at the school, without any preferred explanation for his absence. First, Zhang Suk was not able to understand what the teacher was talking about, but when he looked at the wall clock, he realized that he had been very late, and started cussing at the soul of the dream, which led him to such a destination, with a man sitting in his office, feeling a pain in his ears, wondering if someone was doing the same to him. As Zhang Suk turned to the school, all the students were having fun. After the close of the first class, he passed through the gate with his presence, thinking about the first loss, but it was too late for sure. The atmosphere was completely different from earlier, and he wondered what the reason behind that was. Just before he could comprehend, two of his friends with dull faces were about to apologize. However, Zhang Suk was already grinning at them. Both of them apologized, realizing that they were wrong on the last day, and Zhang Suk remembered that he was so indulged with the beatings from the leader that he had already forgotten about them. He came to know that he was the strongest for the moment after beating the leader, and so in order to teach them a lesson, he bumped a fist right on the back of their heads, asking them to just be themselves without creating any ruckus. However, in any case, he wanted both of them to apologize to Sim-jae. Right then, everything started as he had planned, and when he came to know that he was the strongest guest of the school, he started searching for the girl. Instantly, things were not going as planned. At the moment, she was surrounded by numerous girls trying to talk to her, asking where she got her dress altered from, and if she had changed her hairstyle on someone's behalf. She was washing it all off in order to boost her confidence. But the moment he saw her smiling face with a red blush, he realized that it only had gotten a little bit better. Happiness was busted in the middle when one of his friends told him that the dean was asking for his presence. After his arrival, then he turned to the office area where Hanji was waiting for him. The dean was not at the moment in the school, and Hanji, being concerned, inquired if he was ill or something, and it was the reason behind him being late for the day. He denied it, starting from the very beginning. Hanji had a different kind of blush on her face whenever she met with Zhang Suk. For that day also, she decided to take the call against the team, asking him to head back to the room. Zhang Suk gracefully thanked her by blowing his head, and then went back to the room with a smiling face, realizing that blessings only come to those who live kindly. However, the moment he saw some of the students, who had not brought anything for the day, he realized he was really hungry. It was then when Sim-jae asked him to have some of her food. Initially, he denied it, stating that he wasn't a beggar. However, when she opened the box, he started drooling as he really wanted to have some of it. He accepted the lunch, acting like she was the one insisting, thinking that he deserved a little bit of it for sure. Suddenly, the girl from before entered the middle of the conversation. The lady asked if she was trying to get with him through lunch. It looked like she was a female gangster, accounting for 2 more back covers and a lollipop. Gazing at Zhang Suk, that lady praised him for being the strongest in the school. But Zhang Suk wondered about the identity of the girl, remembering the last time when she acted, and he played along just to remove any kind of unfaithful discussion. Sim-jae recognized her as Eun-jong. Zhang Suk was done hearing that name, but the girl was not happy that he was not even aware of, when his ass was increasing every minute, with a new identity being discovered. At that moment, a lady tried to talk with him, but he repeated his earlier answers he'd given to everyone. The lady asked for a reconfirmation, further repeating that he had no intention of any kind of conversation with them, and then started discussing with his only girl to go back and eat something with him. And Zhang, with absolute anger, started belling about something. while calling Sim Jae someone who was possessed by a ghost. Jong Suk did not like such a proclamation, and asked for a little bit of an explanation. The delinquent giggled and told him that Sim Jae's mom was a shaman, leaving them behind because that lady was possessed by a ghost. It was such bullshit that he wasn't ready to believe it, but got confirmation when he looked into Sim Jae's eyes and saw her red face. A conversation soon took place in school life, where he asked why she didn't go home early, wondering if her mom was there to hit her. Jong Suk then asked about the bullshit from the lady, who told him about it, and then came to know that such kinds of possession weren't able to stand unless a man was beside them to help. She wanted to continue adding something to the conversation, but it was too late, as Jong Suk slapped her right on the face with a cheerful impact. Everyone was stunned to see such a scene, and further, Yoon Jong called him bullshit and asked how he dared to do that. Jong Suk was ready to date a ghost, rather than take a delinquent, who was acting like a thug in the school. Every word coming out of his mouth was needles for the lady, and she tried to attack him in return. He grabbed her hand, telling her that there was no way he was going to get hit by someone like her. As expected, the lady started playing and showing off her background, or she belonged to, and what her father did. But Jong Suk, being already 23 years older, was fully aware that the lady's father was a member of the Tiger Skull Gang. It looked like Yoon Jong was so proud of having such a background, standing against her. But her expression suddenly changed when Jong Suk closed the distance and told her that there was no way he was going to be scared of such a gangster at all. Taking the moment, he declared himself the strongest in the entire school, and while raising the lady's hand, stated that she was from then on going to be an official outcast. He further warned anyone who dared to come close to her would be killed. Every word was totally shocking to Sim Jae and the other students present in the classroom. Time passed, and both the couples were sitting beside the park on a bench, and the radio was wondering if that was really like of what he did with Eun Jong. She believed that it was a little harsh at that moment, but Jong Suk did not look pleased with such an attitude. He started playing with her cheeks, asking her to stop worrying about all the other people. Giving a thought about that girl's real presence, he realized that it was the only girl who bullied her in middle school. He was aware of everything now. Jong Suk was completely unmoved by her pleas. Whether her story was true or not, her actions demanded punishment. He added that she was an even greater villain than the notorious Kang Yo. She was merely a delinquent who strutted through the school halls, shielded only by the reputation of her worthless father. In essence, as the new power on campus, he was going to teach her a harsh lesson. That cold declaration made the lady tremble a little, and Jong Suk, intrigued, inquired about her reaction. She told him that he was acting like a grizzled 40-year-old man, and it was incredibly rude for someone who was only 18 years old. One critical question still remained unanswered. Was he going to be okay clashing with her gangster father? Jong Suk was not even bothered a single bit by that threat. He just decided to head back to the 5th period class. But she stopped him and reconfirmed his intentions. She wanted to know if he would be good with that. This time, however, her question was completely different, as she was now holding back tears in her eyes, and the question was regarding her being a shaman's daughter. Jong Suk was completely unable to understand the reason behind that question, and he further asked if being something like that was in the past, to be bullied or not. The little girl was about to cry, and Jong Suk, after looking at her face for a long while, poked out his finger and attacked her forehead once again, just like he had done in the bustling entertainment district. In any case, he wanted to tell her that, as per their solemn promise, he was going to protect the lady from any kind of misfortune, whether it was from a vengeful ghost or from a social outcast. In short, he wanted her to stop with such pathetic, self-pitying things, or else she would be flicked on the forehead numerous times, for sure. Class was about to get started and he wanted to head out, but he was again stopped by the lady, who was about to ask for another favor that he might not like. As the scene changed, Jong Suk was on the school rooftop, and the delinquent from before, named Eun Jong, was demanding that the man just apologize and cancel the announcement he made in front of everyone. Jong Suk started laughing at her, wondering if she really believed something like that would work. While the lady was on the top of her boiling point of anger, she was continuously reminding him about the Tiger Skull Gang member, that is, her powerful father, who could barge into the school without giving a second thought, and could beat not only him, but his only love, Sim Jae, too. something unexpected and terrifying happened. As Jong-suk released one of his fiercest punches, telling her that he was not going to show up with such big warnings. That was enough to put a spiderweb crack on the wall. And the lady, being deeply concerned, asked why he wanted to turn against the entire gang, knowing that it was too hazardous for him to survive. Jong-suk, having the knowledge of a 40-year-old, told her that he was already aware that the father she was taking back right then was no different from a member who had been kicked out from the gang. As per his inside info, that man had been at the lowest of the gang for the last 20 years. He was an alcoholic and had a massive gambling debt on his head. Someone who was a complete and utter pain in the ass. Jong stood to his knowledge any further, and continued to warn her if she should say all those words in front of everyone, which would embarrass her to the absolute peak point. In the end, when she realized that nothing was going to work upon him, she started asking the victim why he was doing such things to her, and if it was Sim Jae who asked him to do so and give him that much suffering. Jong-suk called it completely pathetic, and then moved to the flashback to tell her what that lady really said about her bully. That very moment, she asked the man to just forgive that lady for her misdeeds. But Jong-suk was not ready for it at all, as it was one of the most pathetic acts he had ever seen. Her only reason for asking such an inadequate request was she had a feeling that the lady was going through something like she herself had gone through. Her mother telling about the proof. She told him that at the start of middle school, that lady was too bright and active than she was now. However, in the end, she ended up with some of the delinquents, and it totally changed her personality to what she was right then. It was the only reason she wanted to give him another chance, and wanted to become friends with her once again. As the scene turned back to the present, Jong-suk was already at the peak of his boiling rage, and it was the reason he was going to change her twisted personality, which needed a total and complete lesson. The lady turned, asking what the man was really planning to do, and he told her that she should understand, as she was the girl. At that moment he turned into a hideous moment by moment, asking what she would do if someone was not at her back, and at that very moment, he raised his hand to deliver a punch right on her face, to give her the real taste of the real thing. Jong looked at it. She saw something familiar in the face of her father, raising the hand towards her in anger, and she tried to protect herself from the blow, leaning on the floor in fear, screaming out like leading her father not to beat her. It was the eye-opener for Jong-suk, and he stopped in the middle of his attack, and asked the shivering little girl if she grew up by getting hit. As the scene turned, Jong-suk was sitting all confused, thinking about something deeply, while the others were a bit concerned about his current mood. Both of his friends started polling about finding the reason behind his current dark mood, as it was not going to be good for them, also shattering their protagonist's peace. He started remembering what he had witnessed at the rooftop, with the lady's presence there. He was confused about why he was thinking that much about it. On the other hand, Sim Jae was inquiring about even Eunjong's health and her absence. Paul told her as per the info she was sick. Jong-suk entered into the conversation, asking about it, and his lady told him that she was absent because she was sick. Was all sure that the lady was making an excuse to skip the school, while Sim Jae reassured him that it had been normal for her since ages. Even in middle school, she was the one having headaches or anemic attacks because she was low on hemoglobin in her blood. The protagonist was not ready to believe something like that, and was calling it an excuse to skip school, while Sim Jae told him that it would be bad if she had received a shock from someone. Jong-suk, in any case, was not ready to take such a burden on his shoulders, and then turned away, asking the girl to head out to meet her, if she was so much concerned about it, that is. Still, he was wondering why everyone sided with that nuisance girl, and then started remembering about his past life, when someone started bleeding from their mind, holding his legs for mercy, as being a school friend. He just wanted to shake off this thought, as it hadn't happened in that life yet, and was trying to convince himself that he was not at fault. Just then he heard the angel's voice, asking him if his earnest repentance was only worth that much. Jong was done with that voice, and he turned to find the angel's presence, leaving the other two looking at him, totally confused about his such an act. It was sure that he was hearing things, but there was no presence there, and it was doing assurance about the angel and forgiving him. Clarification that the angel was looking at him since the start, and whatever he did, it was witnessed by that being. Time fast-forwarded, and he was found screaming out, asking why he was the one helping that nuisance child, while standing on the road, blasting in anger there, showing his true identity. He was headed to find the place of Unjong, and after a long struggle, he was able to finally reach her family's place. Even though her attitude was not good, she still lived in a quiet and peaceful place. Suddenly, the gate busted open, and a yellow-haired man came out with alcohol in his hand, asking about the identity of the man there. The protagonist confirmed about the house, while the man started screaming and cursing him, denying the fact he was confirming he bought off from the place. And Jong-suk entered the house, screaming out for Unjong. He was about to head out, thinking she went for a play, but was stunned to see the lady lying in one corner of the room, losing her complete strength and all covered in bruises. As soon as she saw the presence of one of his friends, she started screaming, but her screams were of no use. She lost every bit of her strength and laid on the floor, helpless and all tied up in her despair. Jong-suk was turned off by something like that happening to her so suddenly and without warning, and after a deep, hard thought, he realized that the situation was more serious than he thought. It looked like the lady was in fear of something, clenching her body towards herself in a ball. But suddenly, that old man appeared once again in the house, calling Jong-suk a thief, while telling about the identity of him. In the presence of the organization he served, Jong-suk did not bother for a single second, and delivered one of the fierce punches right on the face of the man. The man again tried to revert back his attack, but it was far too late, as Jong-suk's next knee attack connected on the old man's face, and he cussed him out, telling that he was not worthy of being a father for sure. Realizing that it was getting too late, and the lady needed a doctor's attention for sure, he lifted her up, pondering that at first he was going to take her to the hospital nearby. His walk was once again interrupted by someone, and it was none other than Jang Sung himself, who was happy with the first meeting with the high schooler, for sure. Jong-suk was stunned to see the presence of the Tiger Skull gangs, lower and higher candidates at the same time. Please understand this. You were sure that things were coming much faster than expected. At that moment, Jang Sung looked at the old man and asked Jong-suk how he dared to barge into someone else's house, and even was taking their daughter without any permission. Jang was too pissed about him punching the man, and Jong-suk did not even show a little flinch of fear, telling him that he was one of the lowest members of the Tiger Skull gang. Rage was in both of their eyes. But when Jang saw that the little girl was not doing well in his arms, he asked him to take her to the nearest hospital, and they would discuss other things when he comes back, giving assurance that then he was going to take care of the old geezer. Jong-suk finally headed out from the scene. Jang was taken back by the strength of a high schooler, punching down an active gang member without any resistance. Since then, they turned to the hospital where Yoon was lying on the bed, and the nurse was telling them that even if it would have been a little longer, then the chances of survival might have been reduced to zero. She told them that her immune system had been weak from the beginning, and she needed to take care of herself in any regard. At that time, once again, he went back to his flashback where he, along with other members of the group, were enjoying their victory of the Tiger Skull gang. The only person in the middle of fame amongst all the gangsters was our protagonist, holding hands with a real baddie. He was telling all of them how he busted the leader of that group, and just then, suddenly, someone grabbed Jong-suk's hand and introduced herself as Unjong, the one who graduated with him from the same school. Jong-suk did not recognize her, and asked about her identity. She informed him that she was one of the slaves who were sold off at the time when they won over the Tiger Skull gang in the war. The reason she was present there was that her father was not able to pay off the debts. At that time, while offering the drink, was leading Jong-suk to take her out of that place, but being his previous self, he pushed the little girl away, showing her an arrogant face, and asked why he would help a girl like her. He was not giving any kind of crap about the same school as he was, not remembering anything, without wasting even a second. He called for the manager of the place. The instructions were clear to the bar group. They needed to make sure that she worked days up and down, and would serve every member of their group. Once they arrived, started screaming in pain and crying in anger, while Jong-suk walked off without giving a shit. The protagonist was pretty sure that when he left, the only conclusion of her life was that she must have died, and could not have a happy life at all. The question in his mind was, if he had dropped out from the school and became a gangster, then her life would be the same as it was going in the previous life. Out of study, the nurse asked for the bill, and Jong-suk told her that he had no money on him. Just then, Jang-sung arrived and told him that all the bills were paid, so he did not need to pay a single penny. The protagonist was told about his presence at the location, and he told him that he was aware of every corner of that city. After living there for a long 37 years, for the next information, he talked about the yellow-haired father, who was not even worthy of being called one. But as a member of the gang, he needed to take care of him, and he did so. Jong-suk was impressed by Jang's initiative of helping the gang members, who are not well on their feet, and taking care of them out of the sudden. Jang started adjusting his watch on his wrist, and after asking the name of Jong-suk, he slapped a tight punch on his face, telling him that he wanted to know the name of the person who dared to attack one of his family members, and turned to the man in pure anger, reconfirmed if that was all this complete strength he had. Jang was impressed with the kid's attitude, as he was not even shivering a single bit after being delivered such a powerful punch from one of the head members of the Tiger Skull gang. The man then started playing with his hair, telling that he was interested in him, and that he was kind of an interesting boy, leaving Jong-suk to talk about the taunting he received. A little banter continued between both of them. Jang was calling him a boyfriend of Un, while the other was denying such a filthiest thing. Before leaving, Jang asked the man to take care of Un on his behalf. But before Jong-suk could explain even a bit, Jang left, asking him to pay respect the next time he saw them. While the man was leaving the hospital, Jong-suk realized that that character was much better than he had anticipated. But still, he was sure that a gangster would always be a gangster. While heading back home, he decided to take care of the angel and was definite in one regard. He was not going to kill anyone in this second life, for sure. And if that angel was testing him right, then he would make the presence of each and everyone who had been part of his deadliest past life. At once, he wanted to tell the angel that he was a temperamental person, who was going to first before talking with them. He suddenly felt the requirement for a cigarette, so he took one out and started licking the lollipop in place of the cigarette. Then suddenly, he was motivated to the utmost strength. He started challenging the angel directly, stating that he was going to live the life as he pleased for the remaining time he had. The man was already informed that whatever he did, he was going to hell for sure anyway. He was acting really strange, while telling the angel that he would live his life freely, in his good way, and if the angel wanted to take his life, he could take it right then and there. Unbeknownst to him, someone was standing on top of a pole, giggling and telling Jong-suk that he hadn't really changed, and so was going to be looked for a little more while. Since then, turning to the next day, Jong-suk was getting ready for school once again, and it was quite unexpected for him to find his father at the place. At that time, when he was tying his shoes, his father was suffering from intense shoulder pain, while his son was asking him to just rest and see a doctor, because it was going to get worse if he continued his physical labor. His father denied it and took the money, and when the son looked at his father's state, he offered to drop out from school immediately, as he was not doing too well in his classes, and could earn some living for their family. Being a typical father, he did not like it, and banged his son on his forehead with an intense sponge. He wanted to tell the little kid that it was not like he was not doing well in school, what he was not giving his best to do well. The second question came from the man, where he asked if he was doing and creating ruckus while fighting with the others at school. Still in school or not, Jong-suk denied it at first, but when the old memories came to his mind, he stated that it changed, depending on the situation he was currently in. He was not fighting at all. His father was pissed once again by his son's explanation, and showed Jong-suk, who decided to just shake off from the location, as he knew that something bad was coming up. Heading out from there, he did not like his father trying to control him. For the next thought of the day, he wondered about how Un-jong would be doing, and if she would be better now. His imagination told him that the girl must be ready to do anything, because he was the one who helped her, and took her to the hospital in such a miserable state. But his expectations were crushed to pieces. As soon as he reached the school, and saw that girl lying on the table with her head down, giving no Jong-suk being concerned about her, he inquired about her health, and the others informed that she had been like that ever since. She arrived and was asking for alone time. Jong-suk was not among the ones who were going to give her whatever she was for, and so he added out and asked if she had something to say to him or not. In return, he got what he was saying to everyone on the first meeting, and was done by such a declaration for reconfirmation. When he asked, she repeated the same words, leaving Jong-suk totally confused by such a self-centered girl. Taking these words into consideration, he left the place, telling her that he was not looking for anything in particular from her. In any case, he looked too embarrassed for his thoughts, and when he was about to leave, that girl looked at him and started cussing, realizing that it was because of him that her school life had ended. On the other hand, she was more embarrassed because that man had seen her in a compromising state and was sure that he was going to use it as a weakness against her. Out of nowhere, her two subordinates arrived and were asking for the well-being of the lady, shocking her if those guys were going to talk to her. Both of them took the lady to the rooftop while giggling, even much more than required for them. At the rooftop, Jong realized that there were a lot of people who had eyes on Jong-suk, and for that, she just needed to take care of all of them arriving inside the school to beat him up. There was something fishy from the start, and those girls showed their true attitude by blocking the gate of the rooftop, using a wooden block out of nowhere to trap her. Jong was bashed by someone right on the floor, and it turned out that there were 3 delinquents waiting for her at that location since the very start. She was earlier feared by them, but at that moment when she tried to tell them that she was one of the daughters of a Tiger Skull gang member, none of them paid any kind of attention to it. They asked why she did not use that power when Jong-suk passed her in front of everyone, seeing someone turning dirty, and as soon as she realized that she was not going to enjoy this, she started pushing herself back, while the delinquents were going to bully her. In any case, they had the motivation that if Jong-suk could do it, and then they also could without any hesitation. Jong was stunned, and started begging for help from both of her friends. However, none of them was ready to do so, as they thought that she was paying for a lie. The delinquent hands were approaching closer and closer to the girl, and she was pondering in her mind that in any case, she was not lying, but was trying her best to not get her family exposed in front of everyone, or she was trying to find an environment where she was not going to be, and live a peaceful life on her own. Her screams raised, and her tears flew from her eyes like anything. The delinquents were not worried about her screams, as they thought that no one would come since the gate was locked, but their intentions were bad. As soon as the gate was broken with a single kick by Jong-suk, both the girls and the 3 delinquents were shocked, after being quieted by one of the strongest persons of the school. Whatever the case may be, Jong-suk did not like such an attitude in his rule. As he entered the scene, he asked all of them to continue what they were doing, and they should not stop in any case for him. He was totally pissed at that time, but was acting cool with such happenings around him. Everyone realized at first that the man was joking, for sure, and for the first time in a long while, Jong showed some kind of ray of hope emerging from the man. The delinquent was not able to uphold his saying, and then screamed out, asking why he was playing so nice, if he was the one who asked them to do so in the first place. The protagonist did not like that at all, and then grabbed that delinquent by his neck, raising him into the air with one arm, asking him to just repeat what he said in his regards. Those were the delinquents who were going to crawl on the floor if someone had the power. However, he took it easy, assuming that person lost it. With that declaration, he put the man on the ground and then made another declaration, stating that they should announce in the school that if anyone laid a hand on Jong, then he would kill them. All 5 of them ran off from the rooftop, grinning in anger, while the lady was still lying on the floor trying to get up. She was so stunned that she, with tears in her eyes, started burning Jong-suk with a lot of questions, including why he was doing such things, and if he was making a joke of her in front of everyone. She just needed an explanation from him. Jong-suk, with a wink of an eye, told her that it was not his intention at all, and all of that came from one single cute, soft girl, Sim-jae. Then Jong was taken aback without presence, as she was not sure why that girl was helping him, even when she had said so many wrong and degrading words towards her, in order to degrade her self-respect in front of everyone. Sim-jae started crying, so Jong-suk entered the conversation, and told her that no one was as pathetic as she was, and then further told her that while she was trying to act delinquent to save her own family, Sim Jae was speaking about her being worried from the start. Sim, too, held the lady's hand and told her that, even though she was hurt a few days ago, that pain was nothing comparable to what she was bearing, of not being able to hang out with someone like her. With a declaration and a red face, Sim Jae asked her to be on her side once again, as a friend. Eunjong did not say a single word and then stood up from the location. It added to the classroom, wondering what she was doing all that time today, setting herself among the others. At that time, Jong-suk believed that he had cured all the issues for the moment, and could think at the top of his head. There he was going to challenge the angel once again, asking what he was planning to send for the next time. In the near future, as the scene turned to a shabby place at Sampogang, a man was being passed by some of the bullies, pathetically and without any mercy at all, continuously begging for mercy from all of them in any regards. As the camera angle changed, we could see a man sitting on the table, introduced as the current gang's boss. Yo Bong-kyu. He didn't look like someone who would give forgiveness to the man, who was not even able to take care of a single task, of handling the Tiger Gang. That man again begged for mercy, for just one more chance at life, and was ready to pay out for whatever he had done. In any other regards, such a declaration was enough for the filthy man, and he praised the determination of the man, and then asked his subordinates to take the boy to the doctor, and take out all his on-runs, to sell off and make money for whatever they could, to be invested in the gang, of course. It looked so merciless, that even the man was ready to do whatever he wanted to. He was given such faith by the Sampo gang. The leader then turned to one of his men, who was the commander of the gang, asking why they were recruiting such bullshit into the gang, who were good for nothing at all. At that time, he was just thinking of having a member like Jang's son. So Yom showed him a picture of our protagonist, stating that he might be useful in his purpose. For sure, the leader did not like to see a high schooler in a uniform being presented by one of his commanders to be recruited. So that commander further told him that the man was taking care of the original boss of Sampo High by himself, including all of the other delinquents. Since then, he was for the price of being added to the list. However, the leader did not like it even a bit, and then reconfirmed his question. If a commander of the group was asking them to recruit a high schooler of the second year under his wing for the battle, to regain his master's trust, Yim added that it looks like Jang Song had eyes on him because, as per the past reports, he was seen contacting and conversing with Jang Suk in Jeongal Hospital. The leader wondered if Jang Song was training him, that man, to emerge as the new commander of the Tiger Group. And with that thought, if he was sure that something like that was going to happen, they needed to be careful that such a man would not join the Tiger Skull Group. With that declaration, he asked his commander to bring him to join the wing. On another day at the school, there were still chattering sounds among the students, who were discussing petty things with each other. Just then, after Jang Suk passed through the corridor, everyone started greeting him with respect, as if he was the one they had been waiting for since the beginning. As said, it had already been 2 weeks since he was declared the strongest in the school, and because of some reasons, there was peace all around it. The only reason he remembered was him banning all acts of stealing, bullying, and delinquent behavior from the school. As said, there were protesters against it, screaming why he was doing such things and why they should follow him. However, they all calmed down with a few punches by Jang Suk, and after realizing this, they disappeared from school, showing no signs of delinquency anymore. Just then, Sim Jae arrived along with her friend, and waved at Jang Suk, asking how he was doing. Looking at her face, it was clear that she had come out of her loneliness, and was more confident with her new hairstyle. From that day onwards, Eunjong was always accompanied by Jang Suk's girl, and somehow, she felt a little embarrassed by it. She arrived in the middle of the conversation, giggling while mocking Jang Suk for his late presence. She was the third character doing fine at her mischief list. The fourth member was Kang Yong. Following that last cataclysmic outburst, he was now faced with one final lingering problem, and at that very moment, a man approached him and bowed deeply before Jang Suk with an immense, profound respect, addressing him as Big Brother. Jong Suk, for his part, found this sudden display of reverence deeply unsettling, and that man was revealed to be the professional fighter from before. He was now continuously calling him elder brother, with the utmost respect and awe. Recalling the brutal fight that the boxer himself had initiated, Jong Suk mocked him, asking why he was now being so incredibly respectful when he had been a dead bastard walking just the last time they met. The other man just nervously tried to brush off the entire conversation. Jong Suk began to walk away from the location, as he had no longer any intentions of acting like a common delinquent in the school. But then, unexpectedly, the man revealed that this was the sole reason he wanted to follow him. From the very beginning, that man had been truly impressed by his immense power, and he was going to follow him if he ever decided to form a group. However, he was completely shocked to see that Jong Suk didn't even form a single one, and was instead correcting everything in the school by his own strict set of standards. His actions and unique approaches were giving him only one single, undeniable clarification. The strongest person in the entire school does not require any kind of power or force. It was at that very point in time when the man considered him as his elder brother for life, and in the end, he was the one who had been taken down, and was ready to face anything from that little bastard. After school, Sim Jae asked Jong Suk out on a date. However, he flatly denied her, stating that he had to make dinner for his father at home. Just then, some casual-looking person started asking for Jong Suk's help with his bag, and he initiated the strange game of the bag with him. But after realizing that it was the creepiest guy from earlier, he took off his bag and asked if the man was really talking to him. Since the beginning, the man had intentions to walk with Jong Suk to find out where he really lived and his location. Not information one should refer to his friends, for sure. Both of them walked down their hallway together, and were inquired by two big, menacing men, blocking their way to the narrow stairs of the building. They were looking at him with very bad intentions, but Jong Suk was able to understand a little bit of his presence. Their attention suddenly was grabbed by someone else entirely, and when both of them turned around, they found that it was the yellow-haired gangsters with a bat, and along with a man in their presence as well. There was only one singular intention: to kill our protagonist right now. That yellow-haired man continuously started cussing our protagonist, and when he was in the middle of speaking, the man behind him raised his hand up and delivered a powerful slap on the right cheek of the man, acting like he was the superior one in the group. He didn't like such an attitude coming from a lowly kid, and so he walked off, asking who was Jong Suk amongst both of them. The man told him, but Jong Suk was not liking the situation, and things only got worse when that tall, bulky man asked him to just follow to the point he wanted to know. But none of it was making any kind of sense to him. Until then, he had done nothing to be indulged with the Sampo gang. He was trying to analyze the reason behind their presence at the location, knowing that if he was taken away from the location, then he was done for sure this time. At that moment, he started rising for a sneak attack on both of them, taking them down and running from the situation. However, his only problem was the presence of his subordinate right behind him, whom he called an idiot instantly for being there. Jong Suk denied that thought, and started running at the man with a clean fist, acting like he was going to deliver a powerful punch. While the man stood with a grin on his face, waiting for his arrival, he went down to the floor, and out of nowhere, Jong Suk took some coins out of his pocket and threw them directly at the man's face, to make him lose his concentration and focus. The man tried to protect himself from the sticky coins, and stumbled. The yellow-haired gangster was not liking it at all, and was stunned by such an action from him, as Jong Suk was aware that he would not be able to do anything to the big monster. However, he, in any case, was not going to rush without doing anything. So he delivered one of the deadliest kicks to the yellow-haired man, and pinned him down to the hard floor. Everything was going as per the plan for now. It was time for him to run away from there, but unexpectedly, that monster had already pinned his target against the subordinate accompanying him. He then asked the man to stop, or else he would break the limbs of the kid, born to be an idiot. His eyes were full of anger, while Jong Suk was boiling with rage at the situation. Jong Suk was thinking that he needed to be selfish, as he was not aware of what would happen if he went with those guys. While the man was still cleaning himself off, and asking him to come quietly with them, one of his subordinates started screaming loudly, asking the man to run while forgetting about him. It was something like an action from a side hero. The tall, young man did not like it at all, and delivered a powerful punch to the kid's belly, making him shut up. He then asked Jong-suk if he was really going to abandon one of his friends. Jong-suk didn't pay any attention to it at all, and then started driving from the location, while the others were cursing him for such actions. That man was totally aware that if he let him off from there, it would be a pain in his ass later on. But for his own good cause, he decided to take out his anger on the man who had made him rush away from the location. He called that idiot and asked why he did so, asking the man to run away without thinking about himself. Jong-suk's friend asked him what the identity of those people was, and the person with the green hair told him not to be worried if they found out who they really were. After hearing the name that they were from the Sampo gang, his friend's face grew dull and duller with each passing second. It looked like Jong-suk was still running away, while his friend was caught by his collar, ready to have his limbs broken piece by piece. Regrets weren't going to pay off now, and the man did not like being stuck in someone else's discussion. It was then that Jong-suk successfully planned his sneak attack, and ran to the man from behind him, delivering a precise hit to his spine. That attack was enough to put him down on the floor, and so, Jong-suk found the time to call the subordinate to just run away and call the police for help. In any case, he himself was going to such a position in order to stop them from attacking, both present at once. The idiot was not going to obey, and was terrified to know that they were from such an organization. So Jong-suk bumped his head with a single punch, and told him that it was nothing special at all, and he was going to take care of them as their elder brother. The battle continued on, and he took down one of them with just a single kick, then asked the man once again to just run away and call the police, as his friend would only get in the way here. His friend had tears in his eyes, and he started running away from the location, telling him that he was going to call the police. He only had to hold them off for a moment. Jong-suk, while battling with the gangsters, was happy that he had conducted one more good deed, while his friend, running to the police, was thinking that he would definitely see him again. But that certainty turned pale when he saw a different presence waiting for him around the corner of the street. It was the current commander of the Sampo gang, Yom, and he had a different kind of grin on his face, on the other side of the street, taking them down with fewer and fewer punches. After a long struggle, it looked like he was done with the guys. Just then, that man arrived from behind him, telling him that he surely was not a common high schooler. It was the only reason that the Tiger gang was interested in him. To the surprise of Jong-suk, Yom was carrying that idiot from before. All beaten up, Jong-suk was not able to hide his anger, and then rushed at the man with an intent to kill him, to see his friend being beaten like that. However, as the commander of such a high organization, he was attacked on his chin with Jong-suk's elbow, perfectly and professionally at the same time. That was a counter he had never expected from the group. Jong-suk once again fell into the pit and started attacking him. Once again, he was taken down with perfection, as Yom predicted each and every move. For the second time he attacked his back, neck, and while grabbing him by the face, he pushed him onto the hard floor, telling him that he was just a kid who needed more treatment. Jong-suk was not able to understand where such a monster arrived from, with such ridiculous strength and skill. Yom told him that without proper technique, any battle fought in the street is just a normal street fight. Those words were enough for Jong-suk to make him realize that Yom was the strongest in the entire city, and the one who had been his teacher in the past life, the one and only Commander Yom. Jong-suk then started remembering and went into a flashback, where he first met that man. As expected, the battle was going on, and it was the time they were fighting with the enemy gang, the Tiger gang on one hand. Jong-suk was still stumbling to get a hold of his enemies, while on the other side, he saw the commander taking down numerous men all by himself, making the others stop and look at him in awe. His calmness was evident, and even when the enemy tried to attack him, he blocked them and delivered punches like it was nothing. Just an easy walk in the park task for him to do. Another man came from behind and tried to attack him in a duel, but it was too late, as the commander noticed his presence. While blocking the attack with one hand, he delivered a powerful punch right on the man's face, taking him down in one single blow. When the others saw that he had someone like them in his place, they started shivering in fear for the plan. They all headed out to attack as a group, Even that group for the commander was like moths to a flame. Jong-suk realized that all those men were on the floor because his actions had no excessive movements at all. It was at that moment that he felt awe for the first time. Seeing someone with that kind of power. That was the only reason he asked the commander to teach him, even though he was at such a low level. Every time he was in training, he was the one lying on the ground with just one attack from the commander, who continuously told him in every training session that he didn't mean to attack head-on without thinking. But for Jong-suk, he asked for confirmation. If the commander wanted him to attack from behind, which would not be something a real man would do, those words pinned the commander deep, and he delivered a kick to Jong-suk's chest to tell him that he was a gangster, and there was nothing right or wrong for him. In any case, what mattered was winning the battle. His final instructions at that time were that he did not need to worry about methods and should find a way to survive in the worst of times. Turning to the present, Yom was still asking the man if he really understood the concept, and Jong-suk was confused, wondering how that man had reached such a high position at such an early stage in his life. The man was standing up front with one leg on the chest. Jong-suk had the feeling that there was no one who could beat him, in strength or in fights in the end. He agreed to follow him, while the commander told him that he needed to pick his opponent carefully from then on. Even though it looked like Jong-suk had agreed, he was planning something else entirely. He then told him that he was not going to focus on methods for winning, and with that intention, he threw a handful of sand into the man's eyes, stumbling on his own actions. The moment his opponent was rubbing his eyes, it was his chance, and he went to deliver the punch. He was delivering it to his schoolmates, but as expected, that beat was not successful. When his punch was blocked by him, the commander praised his strategy of launching a surprise attack, but even that wouldn't work on him. And when the punch was just an inch away from Jong-suk, he realized that he had really messed up this time. On the other side, where Sim-jae was walking for the tree, she looked a little depressed and concerned about him. She started wondering what that feeling was, as she thought about Jong-suk's condition, whether it would be good or not for him. When he opened his eyes, he heard someone talking about him, about taking down 4 guys at once by himself. When the man was awake, he saw the presence of the commander and the man standing behind him, looking at him continuously with disdain. The leader of the group was concerned about what the commander had done. However, for the commander, he had just taught him a lesson. He was still thinking about where he was. And when the leader came closer to him, asking about his identity, and praising him for the rumors of taking down numerous students, at once he decided to introduce himself. Jong-suk, in any case, could not forget the identity of that man, as he was the gang boss, and if he was present there, it was clear that the man was directed to the center of the Sampo gang headquarters. Even the leader was impressed with the beautiful place of our protagonist, and was wondering to meet him for a long time. From the beginning, he wanted him to make him a part of the wedding, and was ready to do whatever he had to do there. Jong-suk was again at the peak of his boiling point, and did not like the words of flattery from the leader. It looked like he was going to deliver a powerful punch right on the face of the man, without any hesitation. As the dream broke, he was thinking of doing that only if he was not tied up. The man then started pointing out that he was at that location when he was not that famous. Thinking about the situation, he remembered what he had done during all that time, fighting with gangsters and the school bosses, and winning over them in just a few moments of time. This was the reason he had been holding such attention from the beginning of his second birth. He was trying to be a good person, but was not able to because of some circumstances, and he had to face the other hand. When the commander was looking at the man, he realized that something was wrong from the beginning. The first reason was that he had no fear after being summoned by such a gang member, and the second one was the words that he had said during the battle. On the ground, he just couldn't shake the feeling that he was not a normal high schooler, for sure. Suddenly, Jong-suk started laughing, making the other 2 standing in front of him totally confused. The leader inquired about it. Jong-suk started mocking him, asking that even though he had been famous recently and was standing in front of the boss of the gang, they were scared of a school kid, and had tied him to the chairs at the core of the headquarters. Those words were an eye-opener for the leader as well as the commander. The leader, being excited even more, called the brat a lively one who is going to achieve something in his near future, for sure. to further emphasize, he grabbed his hair, seeking some kind of fear in his eyes. But Jong-suk, being stubborn, asked him to do it when his hands were untied. After deep thought, the leader announced that he was going to untie him, while the commander tried to tell the man that the kid was surely plotting something, and it wasn't as simple as it looked. The leader did not like the intervention from his subordinate over his command and was looking at him. And it was what Jong-suk had expected from the beginning, that the leader was an emotional character, while the commander was a practical one. Just then, he started planning what he had to do once his hands were untied. The only plan for survival in that case was grabbing the leader and taking him as the bait to get out of the headquarters alive. It was a temporary solution as something was fixed. They were going to follow him to the end of his life, but for then, even the temporary solution would do. The process was in between. When both of them heard something happening inside the headquarters, a man entered the room and informed them that the Tiger Gang was inside the building. But before he could complete the sentence, he was hit by a powerful kick from the backside of the door. As he arrived, it was the top lead member of the Tiger Skull Gang, Jang Sung. Even Jong-suk was surprised by his presence, and so, the leader of the Sampo Gang inquired if he was trying to start a war. Jang Sung answered the question by asking if gangs were feeding on children these days, and those words were irritating to the subordinate standing behind the leader of the gang. Everyone was waiting for the leader, while he allowed the members of the Tiger Gang to take away the kid. They required reassurance from him, and the man again repeated that he was allowing them to take away the kid and do whatever they pleased with him. However, it was not going to be easy in the man's head. In the end, successfully, Jong-suk's hands were untied by the gang, and the top member asked Jong-suk to head out. The leader at first showed no resistance to him, but then asked Jong-suk to meet in a better place. Jong-suk denied, stating that he never wanted to meet him again, whatever the case may be for him. But it was not expected that the great Jang Sung would rush, personally, to save a little kid. And it was the reason he was going to take that bastard, for sure. Things were getting interesting in the eyes of the commander, who was still pondering about what the identity of that man was, as he surely was not a high schooler. As they exited the headquarters, Jong-suk was wondering why those guys were there, and how they had found him. Jang asked him to just follow without speaking another word. However, Jong-suk did not like it, and shook the shoulder of the man, asking for an explanation from him. It was like he was being so friendly. And out of a sudden, a hand came from his right side, catching him and pushing him against the wall, asking if he was even aware of what he was doing, and to whom he was putting his head on. That man was very angry, and even though all of them had gone to so much trouble, Jong-suk was acting almighty and tough. Jong-suk continued his bartering with him, thinking of killing him right there. And since Jang was the only mediator between them, he asked both of them to stop fighting. None of them were listening to him. The subordinate apologized for his actions, and Sir Jang then told him that both of the groups, Sampo and Tiger Skull, were rivals fighting to gain control over the city. Since the beginning, even though the fights were intense, they had received reports that Sampo Gang was planning something, and as a lieutenant he went out on a patrol that day. Suddenly, he met a man with a big chin personality, and those words reminded Jong-suk of the sicko person. That was his own subordinate. Jun-soo, out of concern, he inquired about his health, and the man informed him that his friend had already been sent to the hospital and was being taken care of by the doctors. The man was introducing himself by name, even after being hurt to such an extent. Then Jang asked Jong-suk to follow him, as they needed to get out of the turf. However, Jong-suk added a different manner, and then asked why he would head out to a gangster's headquarters, as both of them were similar in his eyes. Further, while leaving the place, he asked all of them to stop being friendly, and he did not want to be noticed by any of the gang members. The others were pissed, however. Jang realized and asked them to stop and let him leave. While heading out to his own place, Jong-suk was using himself continuously, remembering what the leader of the Sampo Gang had said. That man had even planned to meet him in the near future, under different conditions. And by thinking all those words continuously, he was wondering what he was supposed to do. He was deeply torn inside, well aware that it was all the doing of the angel who had pushed him to that. As the scene turned, Jong-suk's father was already home, and wondering if his own son was not at that place. His shoulders were aching from the beginning, And just then, he noticed that Jong-suk's room was lit up. Hearing the noise, he wondered if that was a burglar who had entered their house. His intentions were shattered when he entered the room and found his son playing with a mess, collecting something in a particular carton box. So he inquired about what he was doing. Jong-suk raised his eyes to him, and then told him that they were about to leave the city, and that was the reason behind why they needed to gather whatever they could from the house. His father wanted to know a bit more about it. And so, when he saw Jong-suk's face, all covered in bruises and slightly reddish, he became concerned and asked if he had been beaten up or something. The father, being practical, inquired with the man why he was saying that they were about to leave the place. Further question stands, if they hadn't money required for relocation. Jong-suk didn't matter, as the Sampo gang was behind them. From that point, his father was not aware of it in any case. And when asked for confirmation, Jong-suk told him that there was something everyone should run from, while not paying any self-respect to their own character. For a while, his father heard the conversation, and waited until Jong-suk continued packing up his things. He then took the pan which he bought to fight with a burglar, and attacked the back of Jong-suk's head. That was sudden, and when the man asked about it, he told him that he was an old bastard taking care of his son, so he should just sleep for the moment. Everything blackened from his end after that. When Jong-suk woke up in the morning, he wondered what time it was now. He had been knocked out just then. He found a paper note lying beside him, and it was written by his father, stating that he had already informed the school that Jong-suk was not going to be there, so he should just rest for the day. It wasn't about the school for sure, and after a deep thought like a man, he realized that his father was in the right place. There was no way they could just exit the place and settle somewhere else without having any money, so he was keen to propose the move. And as he was not able to think even about what they were supposed to do, if they were going to stay there, it was surely dangerous for them. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Someone was asking for his presence. Jong-suk was done and was green with anger. In order to win the fight, he grabbed a baseball bat, ready to knock him down and make the mistake once again. Even if it was his second birth or second chance, he was not going to join that group in his life again. The man behind the door still hadn't opened, and Jong-suk was grinding his teeth in rage. He had been waiting all this time for the man to enter, ready to pull off a home run, like a baseball out of nowhere from the Sampo gang. He even knew where the keys were, and started searching under the flask. Jong-suk was done, realizing that the man was still aware of something serious. It was then that the man opened the door, and Jong-suk immediately started attacking him. Calling him a delinquent bastard, he aimed for the man's body, but somehow the man dodged it and asked him to stop, while showing something on his face to him. As the tension eased up, it was revealed that the man was from the police department, named Young-sung, who asked him to come to the police station for a chat. Both Jong-suk and Yoon-jong were stunned to hear those words from the detective, and it turned out that she had been hiding behind the wall of Jong-suk's home, wondering what he had really done at that moment. She had arrived to help him with his situation. The scene then shifted to the police station, where Jong-suk felt completely uncomfortable in the environment. Even looking at the cage, he felt a sense of disturbance in the place. The detective was his usual mean self, calling Jong-suk a little puppy, then telling him that it was his father who had informed the police station that he was being chased by the Sampo gang. This was something his father should not have interfered with, and Jong-suk didn't like the detective's actions, calling them unnecessary. However, after thinking it over like a good man, he realized that this was the first time in his life that his father had taken something, he said seriously. Without any evidence, the detective then asked what was really going on with him being chased by that organization. But Jong-suk just shrugged off the question. Just then, another detective entered the room, bringing one of the delinquents who was seated next to Jong-suk. He seemed to be a stubborn one. As soon as he saw the man sitting idly in the chair, he bonked him on the head and began mocking him, asking what a teenager like him was doing in such a place. In his eyes, this man would be one of the ugliest guys in the future. The redhead suddenly got up from his chair, attacking the man with a fist straight to his nose, knocking him to the ground in an instant. The attack was fierce, and even the detective, standing beside the man, was totally stunned by the blow. Jong-suk was boiling with anger, while the man lying on the ground asked how he dared to punch someone in a police station. The man looking at the culprit didn't care. whether it was in the police station or at home. The redhead had tried to attack him again, but it was stopped by young Suk, who told him to control himself, at least in the police station. Jong Suk came to his senses, realizing that he was so riled up by what happened yesterday that he wasn't thinking straight at all. Both of them then went to the rooftop of the police station, where the man sitting with a cup of coffee tried to mock Jong Suk. The man thought about it, realizing that whatever happened yesterday was still on his mind, and yet he had no time to discuss it. Without saying anything, he started heading back from the place. Young Sung asked about Jong Suk's complaints with his father. However, Jong Suk denied it, stating that he had just gotten into a fight with some delinquents and got injured. The reason he said this was that he believed a policeman, like Young Sung, wouldn't be able to do anything against such an organization. There was no point in telling him anything. Out of the blue, Young Sung started speaking, first mentioning his subordinate, Jun-soo. He added that he knew the redhead man was one of the top-notch members of the current, strongest group at Sampo High School. He had clashed with the gang repeatedly. In fact, his classmate was now confined to a hospital bed because of, for 2 long weeks, every single detail had been meticulously laid bare. A chilling realization washed over Young Suk. Young Sung knew absolutely everything. In that tense moment, Young Sung, the deceptively young 18-year-old, was prepared to settle any lingering scores right then and there. As the scene snapped back to the cold police station, Young Sung declared to Jong Suk that he understood the hell he had endured. But Jong Suk's face hardened, his brow furrowing as he demanded solid proof. All the while, Young Sung was piercing him with an analytical gaze, convinced that this was no ordinary high school student standing before him. This boy possessed an unnerving lack of fear in his eyes, even while sitting inside an interrogation room. One thing was crystal clear. It didn't matter how powerful a high schooler could possibly be. No normal kid could just deck someone in the middle of a police station, like it was just another Tuesday. Furthermore, N was an acquaintance of the Tiger Gang's most elite enforcers. Regardless, Young Sung sensed this boy was concealing a dangerous secret. And with that burning thought, he leaned in and asked if the Sampo gang was blackmailing him. The question struck a nerve, making the detective jolt to his feet, ready to storm out without uttering another single word. He arrogantly commanded the boy to fetch him some water or something, if he truly wished to talk. Jong Suk was convinced that this man was utterly useless to his cause. But just at that moment, a boy materialized from thin air, taunting him. "Are you truly going to run away?" Jong Suk was already simmering with a deep rage towards this so-called angel. This question was the final trigger. He whirled around and spat, questioning if the boy had any clue what he was enduring. In a flash, the angel appeared directly in front of his face, just like their very first fateful encounter. The angel's voice was cold as he expressed his profound disappointment. The celestial being declared that he was failing to honor his sacred vow to correct his past sins. Our protagonist had reached his limit with these righteous demands. He shot back, declaring that he had already given his absolute all to atone for every single one of his mistakes this final time. He then challenged him, demanding what more could he possibly expect. If not that, the angel retorted that it was his own grave misunderstanding. The angel warned that there was never a chance he could achieve perfection. He was tasked to recall the hell he'd survived throughout his second life, and all the turmoil within the school's walls. He just couldn't possibly comprehend what the angel truly wanted from him. Even though he excelled at brawling and cursing out everyone in sight, he was desperately trying his best to ensure his life wouldn't be destroyed again. In every instance, he was just infuriated with the thugs from the Sampo gang, and that rage was something even the angel could comprehend. Regardless, he wasn't about to tell him how to live his own life. The advice given to him was actually incredibly simple. He must never refuse the offer of aid when it is provided by another, especially from the dedicated police officer sitting right next to him. And so, Jong Suk wondered. The angel reminded him that he had already crossed paths with that detective. He was the very man who sacrificed his own life to save him. Jong Suk's hand trembled as he wrote down the detective's name, and the memory began to surface. A violent flashback to a dark, rain-slicked night. He was desperately fleeing from a determined policeman. The officer pursuing him was none other than that very same man, whose voice echoed, pleading for him to just stop running. As a sharp turn in the alley approached, he lost his footing and stumbled clumsily on his own feet, sending one of his worn-out shoes flying high into the air. The man finally seized him at the exact moment he tried to escape again. The officer, using his years of experience, expertly blocked his arms, preventing any further attempt to flee. Jong-suk, still trapped in his old, defiant mindset, continued hurling curses at the man. The officer's voice was stern, telling him to feel shame before his deceased father. He then revealed that his father had worried about him until his final breath, and yet he had foolishly stepped back into that filthy mud once more, right after his father's tragic death. Before he could process how the man knew about his father, a blinding light suddenly flooded their faces. In that split second, there was no time to think, no time to react. His leg was frozen, he was unable to move it just in time. And so, the officer played his final, heroic role. He shoved Jong-suk clear of a roaring truck, taking the full impact himself. He vividly saw the raw terror reflected in the man's eyes. The man accepted his grim fate and sacrificed his own life just to spare him from such a horrific end. In that moment, time itself seemed to stretch, moving far, far too slowly. And the policeman saw him zoning out, lost in the memory. He snapped him back to reality, asking why he was spacing out mid-conversation. Now, Jong-suk was absolutely certain this was the very same policeman, the one who had laid down his life for him. The detective was completely unprepared for such an abrupt change of heart. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, Jong-suk agreed to tell him every sordid detail he had endured. He was prepared to reveal everything, starting with the Sampo gang and the formidable Tiger gang, and finally, humbly asking for the man's help. Meanwhile, just outside the police station, a worried Yoonjong was pacing back and forth restlessly. At one point, a different officer approached her to inquire if there was anything he could possibly assist her with. She quickly refused, her irritation with Jong-suk growing by the second. She was left wondering what kind of fresh hell he'd gotten himself into this time. Back inside the station's sterile room, the detective had finished documenting every single word. He then sincerely thanked Jong-suk for his full cooperation with the investigation. Jong-suk ended up confessing his entire twisted history with everyone, and the true reasons why they were relentlessly hunting him down. The only detail he strategically omitted was the part about the angel. Otherwise, he would have surely been dragged off to a mental institution. The detective had been searching for a simple, tangible lead, but instead found himself with a mountain of new intel to investigate on the gangs. The officer then grew more curious about Jong-suk's connection, specifically, being a supposed friend of Jang-so. But Jong-suk flatly denied it, insisting that wasn't the case at all. The policeman then gently pressed him, urging him to tell the whole truth, and wondered what had caused this sudden change of heart. At that thought, Jong-suk vividly recalled the harrowing incident and the incredible sacrifice the detective had made for him. So he deflected, as the man humbly apologized for his earlier misjudgment. He walked outside, and Yoonjong immediately rushed towards him, unleashing a barrage of questions about his presence there. Jong-suk claimed that he was merely passing by the police station, and just happened to see her get called inside, which was the only reason he had followed her in. He had absolutely nothing in his mind for a plausible explanation. Then, the old detective unexpectedly came to his rescue, explaining to her that he had simply called him in for some assistance. He had called him, then his girlfriend tried to smooth things over, and soon, both of them were finally on their way back home. Jong-suk suddenly asked if she was stalking him all the way home. Her face immediately flushed bright red. She stammered, insisting that she was just following him, because she was worried he might be sick or something like that. And the second reason, she admitted, was that he had also come to her home during her time of need. Jong-suk found himself blushing as well, but he quickly averted his gaze, wondering how he could possibly find a girl like her so incredibly cute, even though she was known as one of the school's delinquents. The conversation then shifted towards the topic of Simjae. Jong-suk asked her if she had truly apologized for her past transgressions. Yoonjong confirmed it, and added that she was actually a very nice girl, someone they didn't need to be worried about. But in her heart, it felt as though nothing was ever going to vanish, and that was the sole reason that whenever they were together now, she was the one who was constantly feeling sorry for her past actions. Those words forced Jong-suk to reflect on what he had done to others, including the terrible things he did to his own girls, or after taking the life of one of his own friends, and forcing one of his classmates to beg him for mercy. It was a jarring, eye-opening moment for him. he had the sudden realization that even though he had been reincarnated, the stains of his past deeds could never be washed away. All those painful flashbacks were then clarified by the angel, who promised him that his past sins would not be carried over. In any case, out of the blue, he started to call himself a piece of redeemable trash, and Eunjun immediately began to call him that too, but she said the words in absolute playful fun. However, he agreed with a dead serious expression. As they reached her place, Jong-suk waved goodbye, telling her to be careful on her way back home. But then, she suddenly asked him to wait for just a second. She, while hesitating nervously, asked if he hadn't eaten yet, and if he might want to eat with her. Jong-suk was completely stunned. And when he saw this cute girl preparing a meal right inside his own house, he couldn't begin to comprehend what kind of bizarre situation this was, and why in the world such a notorious delinquent was cooking in his kitchen. Watching her, he found himself somehow enjoying the bizarre moment. He then found himself comparing the two friends to a puppy and a cat. It was then that she stood directly in front of him, urging him to eat the food while it was still piping hot. As the porridge was so good, or at least he wasn't disliking it, he then asked why she chose to make porridge of all things. The only reason she had cooked that was because she assumed he was sick. As soon as he took the first spoonful, while she watched intently, she anxiously asked him what he thought. The answer was expected. It tasted incredible, and that simple declaration made Eunjong's face flush red. She immediately whipped her head around, and claimed that she already knew it would be good from the very beginning. First, Jong-suk was confused, but then he was certain of it from the start. With his vast experience of 38 years, he realized the signals the woman was sending him. The girl standing right there was clearly seeking something from him. He believed that her reason for acting this way was because he was the one who had ultimately saved her, and helped her family achieve a better life in their neighborhood. After a short while, they were all finished with their meal, and so, Eunjong decided she would take care of the cleaning. Jong-suk immediately refused and grabbed her gently by the hand, asking her to pay close attention to his next move. It was something completely unexpected from him. As he lifted her hand up to his face and called her a pretty, cute girl, the tension crackling between the two of them suddenly arose, rapidly reaching its absolute peak. When both of them were on the verge of connecting their lips as a form of love language, they both became lost in the moment. However, Jong-suk decided to steal a quick sneak peek, and found that the girl was completely lost in a daze of confusion. To snap her out of that hazy mood, he playfully flicked her on the forehead, which was a normal gesture for him when dealing with other girls. And then he teased her, asking what she was doing acting in that way. Her face began to turn an even deeper shade of crimson. When Jong-suk bluntly asked her, "What are you plotting by showing such an attitude with that cute face?" the lady had finally had enough of his teasing and screamed out, vehemently denying anything of the sort. She stated that she was well aware that she was acting strangely, but insisted it was only because of the expression he had made, while stopping her from asking for something just like this. Once again, the charged tension rose as Jong-suk gazed at the lady, who looked away, blushing furiously. She wanted to tell him that she had never seen him make such a tender expression before. As soon as Jong-suk processed her words, he started laughing as if nothing significant had happened. And then, with his palm resting on his head, he wondered aloud if he was actually capable of making a delinquent like Eunjong worry. His hand suddenly rose up and he gently patted her on the head, consoling her, and reassuring her that it was because of her that he was feeling so much better. At that moment, such a genuinely kind gesture was completely unexpected from him, but somehow it perfectly fulfilled its purpose. As they were heading out from his house, Jong-suk revealed everything to the young lady, so she would finally realize that it was the vile Sampo gang who had been responsible for all of his recent troubles. Further, when she inquired about their true character, Jong-suk, without a second thought, spoke up, admitting it seemed he was somehow destined to be connected to them, and ending up clashing with them over and over again. That particular turn of phrase was caught by the lady, and when she questioned him, he quickly denied it. With a click in her mind, the lady reconfirmed, so that was the real reason he had been acting so nicely all this time. However, Jong-suk firmly denied her accusation, stating with conviction that he really had changed, and Eunjong herself gave him the assurance that she herself never imagined him being this kind of person, one where he wasn't constantly running and fighting everyone, like it was nothing more than a piece of cake to him. Even Jong-suk had to agree because just once before, he was on the verge of giving up on school entirely. But at that very moment, he was completely at peace, certain that he was going to live this moment of his life, weak as he always was, even though the delinquent never fully grasped the profound words he wanted to convey, and often pronounced them incorrectly. That was a little embarrassing for him, for sure. Both the young lady and the man were now certain that both of them had surely changed, just as expected. Then, revealing the reason she came there, she made the first bold move, rising up on the heels of her shoes. She tried to close the remaining distance between herself and Jong-suk, and then successfully kissed him directly on the lips, leaving him blushing furiously at what had just transpired. As for an explanation, she told him that it was simply revenge for messing with her feelings earlier. And without wasting even a single second, out of pure embarrassment, she started sprinting away from the scene, leaving Jong-suk feeling completely used on the other side of the road. When she finally managed to catch her breath, she thought to herself that she must be crazy for pulling such a stunt. And then she wondered how she was ever going to face that man tomorrow. It was just so incredibly embarrassing. The scene then shifts, returning to Jong-suk's high school, where a group of students were already lying in wait for his arrival. For quite a long time, one of them informed the others that Jong-suk was not going to be showing up at school for the day. Two other students started to discuss, wondering if the wild rumors of him attacking some of the gang members were actually true in any way, shape, or form. They believed that if those rumors were true, then how could he possibly dare to do such a thing? Out of the shadows, the ex-strongest man of the school, Park Sahak, suddenly appeared. He saw this as a golden opportunity to reclaim his former position as the undisputed strongest fighter in the entire school. He questioned them, asking who was planning to do something so foolish, and for the answer that would satisfy the man, he was once again willing to use both of the girls who had been his source of strength all that time. At that time, one of his loyal subordinates informed him that Simjae, from now on, was not a person who could be easily bullied anymore. After cutting her hair short and changing her style of dress, she now looked like one of the most stunningly beautiful girls in the class. According to the circulating rumors, even though several boys had already confessed to her, she had swiftly rejected every single one of them. That chatter continued on for a while, and when the leader of that subordinate group grew tired of it, he viciously punched one of the men squarely in his face, calling them the very reason why they were known as the school's The conversation shifted, and they began to discuss the school's strongest man, the one whom Jong-suk had so easily taken down. However, the leader clearly disliked that topic, because even after being the undisputed best once in his entire school career, he had decided to hide away deep underground and not emerge to challenge the new king ever again. As they began to discuss their next plan, Baldy declared that they needed to bring both of them in after class. None of his underlings were responding to the question, and the reason for their silence turned out to be very simple indeed. Suddenly, a figure walked up to their group, calmly asking if that plan was really going to work out for them. When the ex-leader turned to see who dared to speak to him in that way, his eyes widened in shock. It was Jong-suk. He stood tall, openly mocking them for the pathetic plan they had just concocted. In their minds, that man was supposed to be completely absent for the day. However, Jong-suk coolly denied their assumption, stating that even though he had become a much better person, it didn't mean that he wasn't going to be late for just one single day. To strike fear into him, the leader swung wildly at his face, wanting to see how the boy was going to stumble in terror. With a look of pure fear etched on his face, the ex-leader couldn't even process what he should do next. He just moved away slightly to punch the man with his pathetically weak hands. As everyone expected, the very moment his fist touched the forehead of our protagonist, it felt as if all the bones in his hand had been completely shattered. Before he could even comprehend what was about to happen next, Jong-suk had already launched his own fist and was about to attack him back. His fist connected squarely with the face of the foolish leader, and with that single devastating attack, the man was left on the ground, drooling pathetically in his own spit. After declaring that being absent for just one day doesn't mean that someone else is going to steal his hard-earned title, he addressed the other two who were standing there, asking if they were still planning to fight him once again for their fallen leader or not. Both of them started to offer a clarification, insisting that they were not the ones thinking of something like that, and that it was all the leader's own idea. At that moment, Jong-suk raised his hand, and while closing the distance and resting his arm on their shoulders, he spoke quite properly. He wanted to tell them that they should get back on the right track, while they still had the precious time to do so. Such a kind gesture was completely unexpected from the school's strongest person. However, both of them readily agreed. As the man strode confidently down the school corridor, he spotted Simjae walking just ahead of him. Calling her kiddo, he asked her if she was doing well. On the other hand, she was a bit more concerned about his own well-being. After hearing the news that Junsu had been hospitalized following a brutal clash with the vicious gang, Jong-suk, seeing that the girl was showing such genuine care for him, realized with a jolt that just 1 month ago, he had been the one who was mercilessly bullying her. Her current state of asking those concerned questions was giving him the assurance that he had truly and deeply changed. Just then, his heightened senses caught something that looked very bad. He found someone peeking at them from around the far end of the corridor. Hiding behind the wall, he moved swiftly in that direction, asking the girl to just stop there for a little while, as he went back to investigate something suspicious. As he expected, it was Eunjong, who believed she had been successfully saved from being caught. All that time, she was left wondering why she had done that, and why in the world she had kissed the man right on the lips. Embarrassment was at its absolute peak for the girl as she hid her face, wondering how all of that had even happened. Even though the atmosphere around them at that time had completely shifted, she still didn't feel any kind of hatred towards him at all. What the man was truly thinking about her at that moment was completely unclear. By that time, Jong-suk had already reached the adjacent side of the girl. The very moment he called out her name, asking her why she was hiding there like a coward, a light screech and a sharp slap sound echoed throughout the corridor. Everyone nearby was completely confused as it turned out that Eunjong had just slapped Jong-suk across the face for making her stumble and for startling her so badly. Without any kind of prior information, Jong-suk didn't mind it and asked what she was doing while peeking at them. Before she could answer, she realized that Jong-suk wasn't even flinching a little bit while having this conversation with her, and she further wondered if that kiss really meant nothing to him. She did not like that at all, and her hands started to tremble, thinking that it was only her who was taking it with such a higher level of consideration. Keeping that thought in mind, she decided to walk away from the place, but Jong-suk once again stopped her from leaving, while grabbing her hand and asking why she was pulling away from him. The moment the girl turned around, her eyes were filled with tears, running down her bright red cheeks. She continuously pleaded with him to just let her go, but Jong-suk did not let go. Instead, he closed the distance between them with a pure, heartfelt hug. Trying to console her, he wanted to ask her to calm down and just let it be so that they could properly discuss it all later. As she cried softly on his chest, Jong-suk, confused by his own spontaneous actions, realized that this was something he had never expected to do. Simjae, observing the entire scene, also felt embarrassed by the sight. Jong-suk then took Eunjong up to the rooftop, in order to properly console her, while she just kept apologizing while sitting on a Tetra Pak, making him surprised where they both were down. She was playing with her cheeks as if they were squishy balls. Then, she asked if she should just come down or not. Eunjong was just feeling completely overwhelmed, wondering why things weren't like that. She was going to ask him out or something out of nowhere. Even that lady contemplated the idea, making it far too obvious for Jong-suk to see. The only reason for her doing so was because she was so incredibly happy. After not hanging out with other delinquents, and being beaten up by her own father, in the last few weeks, with him being the center of all things, she was going to live a normal life at high school, or apologize for ever thinking that a delinquent like her could even date someone. The protagonist did not like that at all, and he asked her if she even truly thought that, by just changing her own life and her attitude, was going to magically heal the wounds of others. And then, he told her that she should first apologize to them for whatever she did. Then, Jong moved her head while Jong-suk sat aside, stating that no one was going to treat her like that. He would always be right there by her side, since the both of them were pretty similar to each other in many ways. Those powerful words once again made her expectations rise for sure. On the other hand, Simjae was thinking about what she had witnessed in the corridor, remembering how her own friend had denied visiting the place with her the last day, while giving her the reason for visiting the place all alone. She was not feeling well, and in her mind, she knew she should be congratulating her. The wild image of the girl was still vividly stuck in her mind. She was feeling frustrated by it all, for sure. While thinking about all of that, she saw some people converging toward a particular state, and she wondered what was happening. As they closed the distance, she found someone asking about their daughter being taken away in the middle of school. While the teacher tried to deny it, something completely unexpected happened, as that person turned out to be none other than Jong-suk's mother. As soon as she laid eyes on her, she grabbed her hand and started forcefully pushing her to take her to a location. While she denied it, just wanting her to wait, all of these events were being witnessed by the pole. While the other students were discussing if she really was a shaman, while looking at her strange clothes. Just at that precise moment, Sim-jae was lying on the ground, and something strange started to happen. He was not able to understand what had just happened, why something like that was now suddenly visible to his own eyes. For the cause of reconfirmation, he asked about it from Eunjong regarding such a strange mishap. Without wasting even a single second, he moved ahead, rushing downstairs in order to inquire what had really happened down there. Sim-jae was asking the lady to wait, as she still needed to get her bag. However, the shaman was denying it from the very beginning. In her regards, her daughter was never going to set foot in the school ever again. Hearing those shocking words, she immediately demanded the reason behind it. The shaman informed her that, starting from that very day, she would be the one worshipping the gods along with her. However, the girl did not like that idea one bit. The only reason behind that was, she hadn't even contacted her for over a year, and then, out of nowhere, demanded that she leave the school. The shaman, as one would expect, slapped the girl squarely right on the face, telling her that the only reason she was doing so was because, if she didn't, her only daughter would surely die in the near future. Revealing her terrifying abilities, she clearly saw that if she did not leave the school, then she was going to die a horrible death. Still, Sim-jae was not ready to leave the school just yet, because for the very first time in her entire life, she had finally made real friends and escaped the horrible bullying. In her mind, she was ready to die if she was going to have all that. The shaman was about to deliver one more heart-wrenching slap to her face, when the diaries suddenly stopped her. She inquired of the man who dared to do so. It was against her, stating that bullying was forwarded in the school, which was the absolute basics. The shaman snatched her hands from him and, with a terrifying scream, told everyone present that he was a very bad man, that he was the demon who now controlled her daughter's fragile life, leaving Jong-suk totally and completely stunned by that proclamation. Jong-suk demanded to know the reason for saying whatever she just said, and what she meant that he was the one who was going to take her life. The shaman reconfirmed that he had indeed been a reed for her, since all fell back as a different surrounding was completely visible, where it depicted that he had done all kinds of horrible, bad deeds. Such proclamations did indeed happen, but all of these things were pertaining to his previous, wretched life. Anyhow, there was some horrifying accuracy in it, as his soul was still 40 years old. Suddenly, Sim-jae came to his desperate rescue, stating that he was a true friend who had helped her more than anyone else. Amidst their heated conversation, the chats between the students who were watching the drama continued on. They were shivering with their thoughts and other things. The shaman added some spice to the moment when she scared them all, while telling them about the impending punishment. Everyone started to laugh, while Sim-jae just stood there completely silent. Not a single word was spoken from her lips. Suddenly, Jong-suk spoke up and asked the lady to just go home for that day, leaving her completely and utterly stunned by his words. Sim-jae, with her hands trembling, tried to understand the deeper meaning of him saying that. However, he simply turned around, leaving her thoroughly confused, and telling her that there was nothing more he could do about it. At that time, Sim-jae had no one left to help her, and others started chatting about him being so incredibly cool, even after being the one person who had helped the girl the most. They were all listening intently to the conversation. Even Sim-jae herself started to doubt him, wondering what he had been doing all that time, during his entire period of supposed change. The shaman then took the chance to ask her girl to head out with her, and she agreed to it since then. The scene then turned to the shaman's strange house, where she was completely dressed as one of the ghost believers, while her own daughter sat in front of her, all gloomy, looking deeply into her mother's eyes. Even the mother herself felt incredibly guilty, but was doing so because it was the only way to save her life. Thinking about it, she called herself the absolute worst, but she ended up throwing a thick book right in front of her, telling her that these were the absolute basics of becoming one of her type, the teachings from the divine too. She wanted to tell her that, even though she had the sacred blood of her mother, she still needed a great deal of practice, and it was the only way to be like her. Sim-jae did not deny her words, as she was already well aware of why her mother acted in that way. Without any contact, without any prior information, just jumping back into her life, it was all because her mother never wanted her to get involved in all of those dark things. She knew it all along, and at that very moment, the memories from the last few joyful days flooded her mind, completely breaking her soul. She cried, thinking that if it was going to end in this way, she had expected it, but it should not have happened to her. Like this, being a mother, the shaman started crying too, with her tears flowing down like a powerful waterfall. Just then, when Simjae tried to pick up the book, it was picked up by our protagonist instead. He wondered, and as he opened the mysterious book, he saw those strange letters. It was a hitch for him from the very start, as he would prefer learning a simple English word any day over this. Simjae was shocked to see his sudden presence. However, the shaman wondered how he had possibly arrived at that hidden location. The protagonist, without even entering, bowed down on his knees. Then he said that her words were indeed true, and that he was the worst of them all. Without hesitating even a little bit, he declared that he had bullied her daughter for the past entire year, and that shocking declaration made the shaman rage with pure, unadulterated anger. She started hitting him repeatedly with her table fan, asking about his dad. It looked like she was waiting for an unexpected, violent reaction from the protagonist, but he just shrugged it all off, even telling her that hitting him just once was not going to do it. She should hit him approximately 1,000,000 times more. Suddenly, the shaman started to cry, and she asked him what he had done to her precious daughter. But the protagonist skipped past the expression, and instead, he made a solemn request to send Simjae to school until she finally graduates.